Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the seat is so low. Okay.
Lena, are you ready? We're gonna get started.
All right. Welcome everyone. It's 1 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. Chair Pugh is unavailable at the moment, but may be joining us online, but I will be running today's meeting. We have one change to the agenda, so we are going, if I have a motion to approve with these changes, we're going to move the information items after section 5 ahead of action items. So let's see. So we'll do approval of consent agenda. Anything that's removed from the consent agenda, we'll have a discussion, and then we'll move into information items. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda with that change?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Great, thank you. And then one other thing, and I don't know that we need to change this order, maybe we do. We'll move the discussion of the audit results to the top of the list for the action item, or for the information items. Okay.
We need a motion for that?
Yeah, I think we're okay. Yeah.
It's in part.
All right, so just so that our audit folks know, you all are going to go first, and then everyone else will follow you. So thank you. All right, thank you, everyone. Can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Chair Pugh, we can hear you.
Yep, I'm here. I made it.
Great. All right. All right, so we'll go ahead and go into the information items, and I would like to welcome Mr. Tillis, or ask Mr. Tejas to come up and invite anyone else who needs to join you.
So, Madam Chair, board members, President Rowley, we're here to present the audit according to our college policies. We're required to present the results for the prior year audit, and this is the audit from for the year ended June 30th, 2024. So it seems like a long ways away, but the state auditor, just the timing of when they're allowed to release it and approve the audit, you know, that comes, I think that happened a couple weeks ago, and so they just did that, and so now we're allowed to talk about it publicly.
Okay.
So with that, I have here Chris Garner, CPA, with the Portillo Brown Hill CPA firm who conducted the audit, and with that, I'll just kind of let him take it away from here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members. What I have here is, we did the exit conference back in October. It's been a long time ago. At that meeting, we went over all the required communication that auditors are to make to those that are charged with governance. What I have here is just some highlights over that presentation. And if anybody has any questions, please stop me. The whole reason is just talk about the results of the audit. And if, again, any questions, please just interrupt me.
Thank you.
With that, the very first slide I have is talking about our opinion. This is the result of the audit. We issued what we call an unmodified opinion. I put in brackets there, clean opinion, because unmodified to me doesn't really say a whole lot, but it's exactly the type of report that you want to receive. So our opinion states that your financial statements are what we call materially correct, meaning there could be errors in the numbers, but they're not going to be big enough to change the opinion of the readers of the financial statements. And that's really what our responsibilities are as your auditors. And so this is exactly, again, the type of report that you want to receive. In your audit report, there are two other reports that are ours. The first one on the left is what we call a yellow book audit, or government auditing standards audit. In New Mexico, every audit is required to follow these standards. And the reason is because just under regular auditing standards, when it comes to internal controls, we technically don't have to test very many transactions. So your significant cycles, things like payroll, cash disbursements, we're only technically required to test one transaction. We meet regular auditing standards. State audit rule wants us to not only just meet auditing standards, but they want us to meet the Yellow Book standards so that we have to pick samples. State audit rule also expands it a little bit more too. There's 21 potential items that they want us to cover that if we were doing a regular Yellow Book audit, we wouldn't have to do. Things like procurement. They want us looking at travel and per diem. So again, it's expanded. The other thing the state audit rule does is it changes the threshold that we as auditors have to report findings. If we were to just follow the Yellow Book standards, one of the findings would not be included in your report because it's at the lowest level of the type of finding. We have what we call significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. Those two findings have to be recorded or reported based on these standards. Again, state audit rule wants transparency. They want boards to be able to know what's going on and so that you can correct it. Findings are not necessarily a terrible thing. It's a way to get better and improve. And so the state auditor really wants institutions like yours to focus on what can we get better so that we don't have that threshold. So a little bit more stringent. In that report, we don't give an opinion. We just spell out how we're testing internal controls more than what regular auditing standards require. And then we have to report the results of our testing. And towards the end, we'll talk about one finding we did have. The report on the right is what we call a single audit. That single audit is going over your federal grant expenditures and making sure that you're meeting what the federal government expects you to do on those grants. So we go through those grants. We do have one finding that we'll talk about, but we are issuing an opinion on that one, and we also issue an unmodified opinion. So both opinions that we have in your report are exactly the type of report or type of opinion that the college wants to receive. The next one is significant accounting policies and unusual transactions. This is one I'm just going to go over real quick. I meant to take this one out. There really are not very many significant or unusual transactions. You didn't have anything that met that threshold. But when it comes to accounting policies, the college has adopted numerous policies throughout the years. And we as auditors are responsible for making sure you've adopted those that meet the standards we have to follow. That is a part of what we do. Your more significant policies are included in the first couple of footnotes to the financial statements. We go through and we make sure that they meet the standards. And as you can see on the bottom right, we believe that the standards that you have, accounting standards that you've adopted in policies, do meet what we have to follow. This next slide, difficulties encountered in performing the audit. The reason I included this one is the whole reason for this communication is to let the board know how are your financial records being maintained. And as you can see here, we did not have any difficulties other than maybe trying to get some reports. We're still trying to work through Workday. It's still fairly new, but it didn't cause us any delay, didn't cause us any issues. But as far as the underlying transactions that you have that encompass your accounting system, we had no issues. It was the information was given to us in good order. It was given to us timely. So as auditors, what that's telling us is that your records are being well maintained by your staff. And I think that's the important communication that we want to get across the board. Your financial records are being well maintained. This is another important, I think, communication. It really is to talk about, can you rely upon the numbers that you're given throughout the year to make financial decisions? Does the college have good internal controls, good infrastructure to accurately report? And as you can see here, we only had a few adjustments. And to be honest with you, these are not adjustments that you should be recording throughout the year because they are not what HED wants you to report to them on. These are year-end adjustments that we'll have every year. Actually, the pension and OPEB, those only come out once a year anyways, and it's well after June 30th that those reports are issued by the state of New Mexico. So you're really at the mercy of the state. As far as SABITA's, that's information technology leases. Again, it's not something, what you report to HED is when you make those lease payments or those software payments, you see as an expense. Well, standards that we have to follow when we're doing the audit, once it reported a little bit differently. So really, it's as a result of the state of New Mexico and the type of reporting that the state wants you to do to them. So not a single one of these journal entries really reflects to your day-to-day operations. So the communication to the board is based upon our audit, we did not have to adjust any numbers, and you should feel confident in the numbers as they're getting reported to you throughout the year. This next two slides are very, very similar. As far as disagreements with management, we did not have any. Like I said, as information was given to us, it was given to us in good order. So there was nothing that would rise to the level of us having any disagreements. And similarly, if management went out and consulted with another auditor or somebody else, we would have to let you know. And that, again, that didn't happen. The audit went smooth. We were given good supporting documents to get through the transactions and finish our procedures. So there was nothing that would cause this to happen, but it is a required communication. The last slide that I have is talking about the findings. The first one is that when we tested your federal expenditures, one of the things we were required to do is take one of your reports and tie it to the information. And there were just a few numbers that were not correct on that report. I think that has already been adjusted, and I don't think that'll be a repeat next year. So there was just a few incorrect numbers reported to the federal government. The other one is a state compliance issue. And to be honest, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, the state auditor came out and basically changed the rules. State law, when you look at it, it kind of tends to just apply to school districts, not higher ed. The state audit rule came, or the state auditor came out with a ruling stating, you know, we don't want you just applying this to school districts, we want you applying it to all governments in the state. So we now have to start testing, are we depositing the funds as we collect them within 24 hours? We had, I believe, just a couple of transactions. I mean, actually, it was just one that was more than the 24-hour per state law. I know that your accounting staff and finance department have already started working on getting that resolved so that we are meeting state law. And again, that is just a compliance issue. That is the lowest level of finding. If we were just in another state, we wouldn't have to include that in your report. But again, state auditor wants transparency, wants the board to know what's going on and how are we dealing with it. I always like to state, you know, audits are made to learn and to get better. Having findings is not a terrible thing. Having findings is helping us grow. However, if you have findings that last year after year, that's when you have problems. You're not addressing the issues. Both of these findings were brand new to this year, and I'm pretty sure that next year when we come back, they're going to both be resolved. And again, that's exactly what you want to see as board members. Are how is my management team dealing with issues when they come across their paths and they see that we need to fix stuff? And it seems like the culture has been over the last several years that you address findings when they come up, and that's what you want to see. With that, I'll open up to any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
What are the numbers for federal reporting that weren't right? Like, what are they? Are they based on number of students or?
I think there were statistical type things like number of students, those things that were incorrect. And they weren't off significantly, but they were just enough to where we had to report them.
Okay.
I think the one takeaway also, even though we had an exception, we were still able to give a clean opinion. So that one exception we had wasn't significant enough for us as auditors to change our opinion on your single audit. So you still did get a clean opinion, what you want to receive. We just needed to tweak that one report.
So when you said you had two findings, one of them was the federal reporting, one of them was the compliance with the state report. Those are the two. I just want to make sure.
Correct.
That's not one category and there's another category somewhere else.
No, those are the
Those are the only two. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Zuby?
One is issues with changing over to Workday. At what point should we consider that a problem that we have to be engaged to resolve? Because it's something that's coming up in this transition, but at some point is that not something that we really have to address?
You know, Computer conversions are always tough. To be honest with you, an example I always give, I was the auditor of Bernalillo County when they went to a new system. And they spent 2 years preparing. They created an ERB team of about 20 people, and that's now their job is to deal with the software and the issues. Their first year that they implemented, even though they spent a lot of time, a lot of money, they were late on their audit. You were never late. So I think, yes, there's still some tweaks. I think part of it's just learning the system because it is brand new. But we did not run across a lot of issues. We just had a little bit of problem with a few reports. But I believe that your institution's doing a good job in getting it implemented. We do a couple of other colleges or community colleges that are involved in the system also, and they are struggling. You guys, actually, your finance team is a resource to some of these other institutions because you're able to teach them because you do have a much better understanding than our other two clients that have dealt with this. And so I believe that you are on progress. It does take time to get a new system in place. And like with Bernalillo County, year 2, they were finally on time, but they still had issues. It probably took them a good 2-3 years to kind of work out the kinks and get everything working.
And I'm not thinking that it's failing on our team. I guess my question is more towards if everybody's having this problem, should we be putting pressure on Workday to resolve the issues that seem to be consistent across the board?
We actually had a discussion today, and Workday, with some of the issues that were that we had this year, are already being worked on. They are trying to tweak some of the reports that you use internally that we don't necessarily use. So it is a constant changing that they're trying to do. So they are working on it. And your team here, luckily, is part of the force that's moving that, so that you have a lot of insight into trying to help direct where they're going with the changes that they're making. So the answer is I believe they are working hard on trying to get that. And we had a lot less hiccups this year than we did the first year. Well, no, we didn't do Santa Fe Community College, but we did another one, and there was leaps and bounds and improvements from year 1 to year 2 with our other community college that we did.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
One other thing is, I agree. I think having no findings isn't always a good thing. One of the reasons for that, and I'm not an accountant, but I have friends who are good accountants that I've spoken with, is there a point at which guardrails to avoid findings can actually increase college expenses because the rules become strict, so purchasing has to be done in ways that may not be the most economical?
That's a tough question. I don't know that I know the answer to that. Mm-hmm. When it comes to internal controls, you just want to make sure that you have good internal controls. Can you spend way too much having the perfect internal controls? The answer is yes. Mm-hmm. But I don't know that we see a lot of redundancy as we went in and got an understanding of your internal controls. So I don't think there was anything that we noted where there were inefficiencies in the college's internal control system.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you all very much, and good work, finance team.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll move on to the enrollment report with Dr. Ortiz Gallegos.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Quintana, members of the board. You have within your packet the most recent enrollment reports for fall 2024 in comparison to fall 2023 and fall 2025 in comparison to spring 2024. Did I say that right? Spring 2025 and spring 2024. I'd like to just quickly go over it because this is a little different setup than what we've had before in the past, because Member Gurman asked for some very specific things, and I hope that I was able to answer some of these questions in this format. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask me. So let's take a look at the fall 2023-24. I'm not going to go through each line just because of the time that we have available, but specifically what I wanted to make sure that I called your attention to is the end of term. End of term is literally the end of fall of 2023 in comparison to fall of 2024. We had an increase of headcount by 3% and an increase of student credit hours by 4%. So that's pretty significant, and that's a lot to be proud of. And I'll go over a few things that our teams have done to really help impact that percentage change. You'll see that there are various changes on the column on the right-hand side. That's in comparison between the two semesters, and I only really highlighted those particular categories that had a larger percentage of change or difference, whether it be an increase or a decrease. Specifically, you wanted to know a little bit more information about our degree-seeking students, and so there is a comparison between our degree-seeking students who are non-dual credit, non-high school students, and a comparison of degree-seeking students in general, and then overall non-degree-seeking students and all degree-seeking students, and you'll see the various changes between that particular population. You had also asked for some information regarding academic programs, and so I broke it down between our 4 categories: the Associates of Arts, Applied Science, Associate of Science, and Certificate. These, again, are some of the top most growing programs that have grown the most within this particular semester, fall of 2024, and I compared it to the fall of 2023, even though if fall 2023 was not the highest growth program. And then I provided some information with regards to the new first-time freshman students. I was asked to really highlight the programs that our new students were going into, and so again, I broke it down in between all of those different categories, the 4 areas, and then some of the most popular programs that our students were interested in. I can answer some additional questions or specific questions for fall of 2024 right now if you'd like, or I can move into the spring 2025 report.
I would like to ask questions on the fall.
Go ahead, Member Gurman.
Okay. Should have printed this for you. Thank you so much for the new format. It makes a lot more sense for me, and also it would help us compare as we go. I just want to say that we just came back from a national legislative summit, and one of the things that piqued my attention was the enrollment trend nationwide, and I would like to send you the slide deck.
Absolutely.
Because one of the things they're saying is that nationally, the growth in undergraduates in community college is now 5.9%. You know, so when we see 3%, I'm like, well, nationally it's a lot higher. So we have to try to see why and compare. Would be great, and I'll just send you this, and you'll see that. You know, they say undergraduates. I'm assuming it means head count, but we could be comparing apples and oranges. I'm not sure.
There are many variables, Member Gurman, but
Yeah.
we definitely would love to take a look at that.
So I'll send you that. Yeah, and if we go to the top of that table, please. So, head count is the number of students, credit hours. Okay, I was trying to figure out, and this is just to work on this table more so it really makes sense to me. I was trying to figure out, like, if we have 4,000, maybe I should open mine so I can read my screen better than reading the screen here. Sorry. I was looking at my, what was it? Yeah, thank you for zooming in. So 4,484 students, the head count, right? So if I go back and I add number of Hispanics, white, American Indian, it doesn't add up to 4,000 because there probably is an other category or so on. So it'd be great if we have, I'm trying to match the numbers. Like they need to be like an other category, or you might have a biracial, I'm not sure what the category is that's missing from there. But I'm trying to figure out from the 4,484, what's the breakdown based on race, based on age group. We're also missing some age groups there, which you have them in the spring, but not in the fall.
Member Gurman, members of the board, as I started my report this morning, this afternoon, I mentioned that I only highlighted those that had the largest percentage change. So we do have all of that information, and I apologize if I misunderstood your previous request. I can go back and add all of that information in there and be able to provide that for you. So these are the categories that specifically had the largest change, but we definitely can show, and it does add up to the total of 4,484 students, and each one of those populations can be added to this particular spreadsheet for you.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's as important if there's a change, or there's no change, or there's a negative change. I prefer that all the numbers add up for the different categories, please.
Absolutely.
I mean, now that we're going with this new format, just trying to refine it. And it looks like under student type, there was like, it's just, and degree status, there was missing language, but then it showed up in the spring table. So that's all I have for for now. Do you see what I mean? Like under student type, where it says new, but it's actually down in the spring, it's new, first time. Well, there's new. You might want to explain that to me now.
Yes, Member Gurman, there's two different categories because you specifically wanted some information regarding the students who were from New Mexico. And so that was a whole separate category. So this number, the new first-time freshman number, is going to be in addition to, it's a part or a percentage of the overall new students. So of the 395 new students total, 266 of them are from New Mexico high schools.
Yeah. I was having a little hard time trying to add
Absolutely.
every numbers up, and like, it's not adding up, but or doubled.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Yeah, but this is great. This is a great start. This is a nice baseline. And where you say degree status, is that like means all the credit, the students taking classes for credit?
No, primarily based off of your request, we pulled out the data specifically for degree seeking and non-degree seeking students. So each one of those 4 rows, the first one is degree seeking who are non-dual credit and non-high school students. So these are everyone who actually matriculated at our institution, and that was the total of 2,663 students. The next line is degree seeking students, everybody, because even high school students can be seeking a degree as well. The next line is for your non-degree seeking students. That includes everybody at our institution who is not seeking a degree, but perhaps here for professional development or professional growth, self-growth. And then the next line is degree seeking students to include dual credit students only. So we wanted to pull out that population as well based off of your previous request.
Yeah, but I mean, all of them, even the non-degree seeking students, those are students who are taking classes for credit classes, not for credit. Sometimes they're auditing.
Member Gurman, members of the board, some could be taking it for credit, and what we've noticed is that there is a large population, and I can separate that out for you as well, who are specifically taking it for audit purposes only.
No, I don't need that separated, but I just want to make sure that doesn't include students who are doing the continuing education, which is the 2,090.
Member Gurman, there is no continuing education information on these reports.
Okay, so those are the credit classes. Thank you.
I have a question in terms of the new category, new first-time freshmen, New Mexico high schools. Those are students who went to New Mexico high schools that are here. Are the numbers from 2023 and 2024 both students from New Mexico high schools? And I guess my question would be, to what would we attribute a 22% decrease in the number of students in New Mexico that are not choosing us?
Member Whistling, members of the board, thank you so much for that question. We have seen a decline or a decrease of New Mexico high school graduates, and so the population in general has gotten smaller in New Mexico, and so therefore we're thinking that's part of it. We also have some information that we're gathering right now that there are other financial opportunities that have allowed our New Mexico high school graduates to attend perhaps four-year institutions at a larger rate than perhaps what they have in the past.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, now I want to go back and ask questions. Now that I'm done with the structure, let's talk about the numbers. The number of American Indian students have gone down too. And I remember that for a while we're asking about that, and they said, oh, well, the enrollment from Santa Fe Indian School has not been put in the system yet. Is that still the case here, or are we not working with them as much for dual credit?
Thank you for that question, Member Gurman. We are working with them, and there is still some continuing development in maybe a few classes, and these numbers I don't know about the 19% in the fall semester. I think there was also a decrease in a dual credit program or a class at that school, but that is something where my colleague Marcos is working directly with them and really trying to continue to build that partnership with them. So that is primarily from our population at the high school.
At the Santa Fe Indian School?
Yes.
Could it be related to any transportation issues? Maybe we're not getting people from northern New Mexico, Pueblos, or...
Member Gurman, not necessarily, and thank you, Todd, for being here. I will say that those courses were being offered at the high school, but I'm sure my colleague Todd has some additional information. Thank you, Todd.
Thanks for your question, Member Gurman. The swing like that, specific to the Indian school, those classes are very specific to like cohorts and specific instructors that are offering or working with dual credit in those spaces. And so as I look at that without confirming with Marcos, which we will do, I'm seeing probably shifts in personnel or other changes that our dual credit people are constantly navigating with all types of our public schools. They're very dependent on the qualifications and the ability of the instructors at those schools to be able to coordinate that with them and to offer those. So we'll get some clarification on that specific item. There may also be numbers rolling in still on that. I know that those do come in later than others.
For the fall, though, or is that done? Those are the final numbers for the fall.
Oh, yeah, excuse me. Fall is done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
If you're okay, I can go ahead and jump into the spring reports quickly. The setup is the same. You'll see that there are some different rows with different information because, again, I was focusing on the populations that had the largest changes. The first two rows are very similar, head count and student credit hours. This is a little different than fall because we are comparing our spring 2024 numbers, end of term, to when I ran this report last week on February 19th. And so enrollment is still happening. We still have a lot of late starting courses. So these numbers are going to fluctuate. So my next report would be a comparison of end of term. But where we stood as of February 19th, we were up 2% in head count and 5% in credit hours. And then the rest of the information continues as you move on the way down. You'll see some differences between age group populations of what we're looking at that really is in comparison to perhaps some of the growth that we're looking at in particular areas or academic programs. You'll also see that we have, again, the degree seeking versus the non-degree seeking. Our degree seeking population continues to increase, so that's always really good, which then ties into and is in association with our retention and persistence rates, which are also very strong as well. We look at our new first-time freshman information. Again, those academic programs, again, these aren't all the programs. These are just what the new first-time freshmen are really declaring their major in. I'm really excited to share with you that a lot of this is not done in isolation. All of these efforts are done across campus, from our faculty to our colleagues, the staff, those who work directly and indirectly with our students. We had some really strong new student orientation programming over the summer and again now in the spring for the spring semester. We hosted early registration events that we hosted them at different times, understanding our student population. So we had some in the evenings and on the weekends. We had very specific and intentional academic advisor outreach by program and by cohort. So not just our academic advisors are reaching out to them. We had our colleagues in the Veterans Services, in the Wellness Center, and other areas, TRIO programs and whatnot, really reaching out to our students. So some students may have received 2 or 3 phone calls or a text message or a letter or an email encouraging them to register, but not just registering. They're really thorough at doing check-ins students throughout the semester and making sure that our students are doing well and feeling supported and really moving forward with their personal progress or their personal progress goals. We continue to provide our online and in-person advising and conversations with our students, and we have a really strong welcome and support coordinator right now who is really intentionally reaching out to all of our new students to make sure that all that onboarding, all the steps that students have to take is really done hopefully before the semester, but even throughout the semester, to make sure that they're understanding our processes and understanding their role as a student and making sure that we're connecting them with the right services and support areas that they need and that they feel comfortable and confident in as they continue their semester. So it's been a lot of work by many people, and we're really happy to see the numbers. We're still in recovery from pandemic, and we still see those numbers continue to grow and increase. We're still paying attention to what our students' needs are and what their wants are and how they want these services delivered to them. It's a different time, and the staff, the teams have really come together collectively and worked hard at trying to address all of their needs.
Thank you. Any other questions?
So this, we have late registering classes, so we may have increases in enrollment, but is there also potential from drops, withdrawals, failures that we'd have a decrease as well?
Member Wilson, members of the board, not necessarily. SFCC has not seen a significant number of drops or withdrawals in the past, and so that really goes to show the retention efforts that our colleagues across campus. There are some, there'll be a few, but not enough to make a significant difference.
Oh, I was just wondering whether, in the recording, whether that would be shown. I wasn't assuming that we would have a decrease. But the way we're reporting the numbers, that would be reflected.
They will be real raw numbers, Member Wilson, yes.
I'm really happy to see that numbers in the spring have jumped up, especially for new students and freshman students, like 8% and 12% and 19%. Big difference from the fall.
Yes.
Are they, and like 175 students new versus in the fall, they were 395. Those 175 are on top of the 395, right?
Yes, ma'am. Member Gurman, members of the board, they're two separate terms, so they're coded as they come in as a new student. So if I am brand new, never attended SFCC before, they are identified as such for that term. So we do have 175 brand new SFCC students with us, and of those, 84 are specifically from a New Mexico high school. It's important to keep in mind, though, not all of them have just graduated from high school. They could have attended a New Mexico high school from years ago and now starting their education with us. And so they're still counted as a New Mexico high school graduate.
That's great. So once they are here for one semester, they're not new anymore. So that means this whole school year, do you call it school year on college level, on the college level?
Academic year?
Academic year. I've been doing a lot of K-12 bills. So we have 395 plus 175, so 400, 575. That's great. New students already. Great. This is great. This is great. They will keep us, watching over it, and it sounds like you did a lot of effort for the spring semester, maybe, unless you have another explanation. Very big difference between the fall and the spring in recruiting.
They're Member Gurman and members of the board. They're different semesters, so there's a lot of different efforts. I don't want to say we did anything differently than what we did in the fall. There's different populations who we work with. There's different strategies, and it's a different time for many students. Some may have thought about attending in the fall and couldn't for one reason and moved their application to spring. So what we do is not let them go. Once they apply and show interest in SFCC, we continue to reach out to them and let them know that they can start when they're ready, and that we'll continue to provide that service for them.
Do you have staff that does recruiting over the summer?
Yes, ma'am. Board Member Gurman, members of the board, Todd and his team, he oversees that piece, and we have an outstanding team who does recruitment.
Okay, just maybe. I was thinking maybe that's the reason, but that's not it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, SFCC Foundation second quarter report for 24-25.
afternoon. Can you hear me?
We can now.
Perfect.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Vice Chair Quintana, members of the board, President Rally. I'm here to discuss the second quarter of Santa Fe Community College Foundation. So our second quarter of the year is based on our year-end campaign. So we focus on a mailing that we segment to different audiences, talking about student stories with images. Then we also have emails and social media posts that go out. This year we noticed substantially decline in our year-end giving. I can't imagine why that is. We did want to mention, I wanted to mention that we did have several multi-year grants that ended. So that is revenue that we did not see. We also have some timing on certain grants that had not come in prior to the end of the year. So that is our year-end giving. Since our last meeting, we've had a new board member join our ranks. Her name is Dr. Sherry Dean Rovelo. Her husband and she have moved to Santa Fe, and they split their time between here and Dallas, Texas. She is excited to be here, and we're very excited to have her with us. So we also have done a food drive in December that we had some members of Century Bank. Our immediate past president, Jeff Zabit, participated with his team. We worked with Hutton Broadcasting and Albertsons on Zaffarano. We collected 2,000 pounds of food that we were able to distribute to students prior to our 2-week closure. And I did show you a few of our financial highlights for the last quarter of the year. I won't go into detail about that. I did want to note that our campus cupboard was mentioned in the Santa Fe Reporter as one of the 25 things we love about Santa Fe right now. As we look ahead, I wanted to say that we're closing out on 24 and looking forward to 2025. We are reapplying for several grants. We are exploring new funding sources and refining our strategies to better engage with our community and donors and alumni. I did want to recognize that immediate past President Jeff Zabit and his team came to our food drive, and they collected all of the food in the trucks from SFCC, and we delivered them to campus. Then student coordinator Joanne Johnson, student resource coordinator, and the student wellness center staff took all of that food and sorted it into the bags. So there was probably 30 people who worked on this initiative, and it was just really well attended. So I also wanted to thank Dobby and my team. We spent 6 hours at a fundraiser where we were able to engage with the community. People gave us cash gifts that we then turned around and bought diapers, formula, and additional food like gluten-free products that you don't necessarily get some of those donations. So it was a really amazing initiative, and I was very excited about that. You will see with our financials that even though our year-end appeal was maybe not as robust as it has been, our net position as of December 31st is $18,992,000, which is close to $1 million over what we were the year prior. So I stand for any questions if you have any about the material in front of you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah, my turn? The year-end giving graph, is that for just the month of December?
That is actually for the last quarter of the year, so October through December.
Okay, October through December. And when you say giving, because you do mention it's lower than before, but you also talk about grants, and usually when I hear the word giving, I'm thinking of just individual donations and
We include all of that, and I've done a breakdown up above of where that funding comes in, so I do talk about grant
you talk about grants and giving.
And I guess I can change my terminology. Funds that came in for the last quarter of the year,
Yeah.
they have varied in the last several years.
Yeah. Okay. So it is including grants.
It is including grant revenues, yes.
Do you have any federal grants that might be in jeopardy?
The foundation has a portion of the Title V grant, and it includes $150,000 for matching endowed funds. Last Friday, I spoke to a donor who is willing to make that up if indeed we do not get the federal grant.
So far you have not, you're not missing any
Not
payments?
missing anything at this point, no. We have already raised $25,000 of our year 3, $50,000. And I have a verbal commitment to have a donor who would be willing to match that if we do not get the federal funds.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did I understand correctly that the donor is prepared to commit 150,000? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
He actually came to me with his concerns about this grant, and so it was actually sort of an opportune time, and he said he would take care of it if that arose.
Great. Any other questions?
Are you changing anything in your writing of grants relative to what's happening nationally?
At this point, we have not. And there actually, I don't think for in terms of foundation, there aren't any grants out there right now, minus one for the dental program. It's in a small $10,000 grant to support, I think, a conference.
Okay, great, thank you.
We have actually modified some of the language on our website,
Okay,
just
just a little,
as precautionary.
yeah, thank you.
I have a question about, could you give us a couple of examples of the types of grants that you would go after and who typically funds those?
Most of our grants are come from foundations, so Kellogg Foundation, Annie E. Casey Foundation, Thornburg Foundation. A lot of those have been in support of the early childhood program. Some of them are unrestricted grants that they give us, not necessarily for operations, but we would use those as matching funds for the Student Emergency Assistance Fund and some of the campus cupboard or the PLOS program. We also do have one from RDC, which is a branch of Los Alamos Triad. Those are some of the bigger grants that we would have. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great. Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up, a topic I always get very excited by, paid family medical leave update. Hello.
Hello, Member Quintana, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here. So unfortunately, my colleague, Donna Castro, couldn't be here due to a medical situation she's taking care of. But I'm happy to provide that Donna and I continue to meet. One of the exciting things I'd like to report is, you remember the proposed update we gave you guys about trying to expand the benefits for our employees relating to talking about having bereavement leave, as well as decoupling the Family Medical Leave Act and our existing policies, so people who actually join SFCC right away has access to that donated leave policy portion. We've just finished presenting to the Faculty Senate. We did the Staff Senate almost a month ago. And so once we receive the feedback from the Faculty Senate, we should be ready to then present to the Governing Council and then come to the Governing Board for your feedback and potential vote on this particular subject. Separate from that, Donna and I have been reviewing the actual proposed legislation. We actually came up with an initial draft and then shared it with other HR colleagues across the state, and they told us, hey, you can't do that. And we looked at a portion of it and we realized we can't. One of the things we're thinking about was that we wanted to first let people finish their annual leave and then sick leave afterwards before the sort of the other part of the leave kicks in, because the leave itself doesn't give people's full coverage as it's proposed in the legislation. What's interesting about this legislation, this is like they give you like a percentage of the median income within the state, right? So if an employee makes X amount of dollars, there is a concern that that dollars they're covered under the legislation is not enough to cover for the entire cost. And so Donna and I were a little stumped there, so we're trying to think about other ways to make sure that we could actually try to do a better job of fully covering our employees, because we don't want people to be worried that, you know, if they could take this leave, but they're going to be like they're only going to be getting 1/3 of their paycheck, right? That's the other concern there too. So one of the things we're doing right now is sort of trying to cost it out and see how much would it be for the institution if we go with this route. We plan to share this proposal with the finance team to see what might be the option, what can we do, what can't we do. So this is where we're at. And when we submitted the update, we thought we were going to be excited to share some new version of it, right? Until we found out that, okay, we got to go back to the drawing board. But so that's where we're at right now.
So I do have a question about, you mentioned that you were shopping it around and you were told that you couldn't do, what couldn't you do? You couldn't ask for feedback, or you couldn't do what you were proposing?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So they said we couldn't do what we're proposing. So our idea was, since we are pretty generous as a college in terms of giving how much annual leave and sick leave, we want the people to use that up first before the college kicks in to cover the rest.
Isn't that the Family Medical Leave Act?
But right now, the proposed legislation, the way our understanding as we read it, is that it doesn't cover the full, it only gives you like a percentage of how much you would get as a percentage of your income rather than the full income.
Mm-hmm.
So annual leave will cover your full income, whereas this proposed legislation would only cover part of the income. And that's our concern.
Okay.
And so we got to figure out a better way of doing that.
Yeah, and I think I do want to clarify, and I would encourage any board members to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think our original intent in requesting you all look at this is to benchmark some really strong paid family leave policies like the one that the state of New Mexico has, and propose something almost entirely different, right? So really having more of an opportunity to say what would work best for Santa Fe Community College, thinking separately from the Family Medical Leave Act and also separate from what this legislation is.
Okay.
Because I think what we've all noticed in the legislation for the last couple of years is that the tax to employees seems pretty high.
Yep.
And the benefit is not that great.
Yep.
And so we want to do better than the legislation. And so I think I would like to encourage you all to just put that stuff aside and really come up with what would be optimal for Santa Fe Community College if we're not thinking at all about what the legislation says.
Sure. No, we appreciate that. And, you know, our goal, Donna and my goal, is to definitely come up with something better. From our quick perusal of our colleagues across the state and other higher education institutions and even public sectors, SFCC's benefits is incredibly generous and competitive. But there's certain types of leave that our current policy doesn't cover that's being proposed in the legislation. So we're trying to sort of see what can we do to cross that, to bridge those gap, right? And then also, if at all possible, not have employees have to pay additional taxes to get that benefit.
Right.
So thank you for that, and that's our goal.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments?
The only question I have is, help me with the acronyms you have on this paid family leave cover sheet. CHRO? What
Chief
is?
Human Resource Officer, that's Donna.
Okay, and VP of, that's you. Okay.
That's me. Yeah, VP SOE. That's
Okay.
I know, higher education is all about acronyms, alphabet soups. That's one of the things I had to learn when I
I thought that was something outside the college. Now I know you're talking about
Yeah, no.
offices within here. Okay.
Yeah, LFC, you know, all those fancy words.
President Raleigh, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, Vice Chair Quintana. I just wanted to mention that the legislation seems to be a bit in flux right now, and that there have been a couple of amendments proposed, one of which would lower the tax that employees and employers would have to pay, or the percentage of salary, but that would also lower the benefit. And then I think what Yash is referring to in terms of a pretty significant benefit that this legislation would cover, that we would have to match or exceed to be able to be in compliance, is that there's a pretty rigorous benefit for having a child, either adopting a child or having a child. And one of the things that's being proposed right now is up to $3,000 of income per month, or is it per month? I think it is per month for up to 12 weeks, I think. in one of the versions. And like I said, there are multiple versions, so I'll track it more carefully next week and see if there's a little bit more consensus to see. But that seems to be where a lot of the focus is right now, is on, for people who are leaving the workforce or having to step out of the workforce for that. This is being really challenged a lot too by especially the Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce, and I think pretty much any other Chamber of Commerce that lobbies. So that's kind of what that's what the opposition is. But I've heard all along that there's a lot of legislative will to do this year, so they'll work on some kind of a compromise and probably make it through.
Yeah, and another interesting is it's like almost like a year and a half out before this legislation would even kick in, right?
Yeah.
Because they also need to make sure it's financially solvent so they could keep offering these benefits and such. So, but there's some definitely good ideas that we want to incorporate in our own policy, even regardless of where this legislation goes. So that's another thing that Donna and I are talking about. Because in some cases, right, we might be able to provide additional benefit, but the number of employees taking advantage of that may not be as high. So the cost may be something we could absorb anyway, right? So we're trying to look at it all ways and try to strike a right balance of giving our employees maximum coverage while also being fiscally responsible.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, looking
All
for
right, well, you can stay there, Yash, and we'll invite Mr. Bruce up for the strategic plan mid-year report.
I'm going to pass it to my wonderful, amazing colleague, Todd Bruce, right here.
another Todd.
Good afternoon, Vice Chair Quintana, members of the board, President Rowley. Part of our annual strategic planning cycle is the continuous improvement model, and so the mid-year report fits well into that, and providing you an update on all the activities that occurred during the fall. This is a 6-page document. Just going to run through a couple of highlights, largely aligned with the President's goals for the year. I'll start with under Goal 1, support students, the Pathways 2.0. Many of you will remember this is something we've been working on for a number of years now. But going through it, starting last summer, was reviewing the program maps and expanding that out to about 65. And all of those now include the certificates that are embedded within those programs. And it looks like calling for an expansion of the current 7 pathways to 12 or 13, just providing a more clear and concise progression towards a degree here. The second one under support students, I'd like to talk a little bit about our open educational resources. The team's done a great job on this, leveraging the grant consortium for OER here in the state, and developing a 5-year plan, establishing a standing committee for this, updating the rubric and the proposals process, and then committing about $70,000 in faculty grants for 20 courses. Up next, I'll talk a little bit about removing excess credits and reviewing prerequisites. This is adapting changes to the general education policy, and really bringing in some national experts during, I think it was December and January, or maybe it's January and February, to have conversations with faculty and staff here on adapting and redesigning some of our programs that way. Really, some of the outcomes of that is that we're actually in a pretty good spot. So one of those things, trust but verify what the status is. So some good outcomes there, and also an analytical evaluation associated with that review. Sometimes it's kind of hard to suss out what some of the causes of things are, and this really was a good example of saying we're actually in a pretty good spot. Up next, I'll talk a little bit about dual credit redesign, and then just focusing on, there's a lot of work and a lot of people involved in this. This is working with Santa Fe Public Schools, identifying more efficient pathways for general education requirements and career technical credentials for that. I think that we've identified some key challenges and potential solutions that we'll continue to work on that way. Last, before I open up for questions, just mentioned our annual program scans. I know this has come up in a number of meetings, and I saw a draft of those proposed data elements recently. It was also presented to the executive team, so I know that's going to be coming soon. At this stage, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? I have a question about the course scheduling. For over a decade, this has been a conversation, and I think 5 years ago when I started on the board, we had asked for the college to begin doing this work very seriously because we recognize that we don't have a very standardized scheduling system, which makes a lot of things complicated for our students. How is that effort going? How are things looking so far? And if you're not the right person to answer that question, that is okay, and we can invite someone else up, but
I think I can answer it pretty succinctly. I'm also on the Technology Advisory Committee, and there's a subcommittee with that reviews all IT projects that are proposed. This was one of the ones that received the highest rating. So if you recall, we hired a scheduling manager, was it last fall? Yeah, so Amanda Harner's been in that role now for about a year, has been attended a national conference, came back with some good suggestions. Looks, as far as my understanding is that proposal for acquiring that new software has been adopted. It is the Ad Astra, which we currently use for room scheduling. And so I believe that will be a priority for implementation within the next fiscal year.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
So we have the software. Do we have the buy-in?
I mean, with the centralized process, right, it's not just done through the deans anymore. I mean, the deans have a huge amount of input that they provide to Yvonne and Amanda, and working with Margaret, they sort of talk about how do we do things. And again, I think the message is clear for everybody on campus, right? We got to do a student-centered scheduling process, not people's preferences. So there's a conversation that I think that's ongoing, and that's going to need to be ongoing.
Okay.
I just add, part of this is they've historically been working off spreadsheets for this, and actually being able to pull in the data from Ad Astra that will have some historical information there, and so we'll be able to use a more data-driven approach to the process, and that's why I think this solution actually works pretty well, because I know Amanda has been working with the deans and associate deans very, very closely on this and expanding a number of those different offerings and standardizing that, but this will give us the data to back all of that up as well.
Thank you. Any questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm wondering in terms of the OER, is our project focused on our faculty developing OER or adopting existing OER?
Yeah, it's both. It's a combination of that. Many of the grants, some of them are reworking materials that have become outdated. Some of them are actually working with the consortium with other colleges, community colleges in the state of New Mexico, and so that they're building out this together. And then, so since we're part of that grants consortium, we have faculty developing things, other units in the state of New Mexico have them developing that, and then all of us have access to all of those materials.
Thank you.
Tell me more about the pathways, the program pathways. Looks like we're increasing them.
Actually, Member German, I would, at this stage, I'd invite our colleague, Dr. Lopez, up here to speak to that, because this is really his area of expertise.
I was wondering when you're going to start talking with us.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Member German, so the pathways, guided pathways, is a best practice, okay, that has been there, okay, for many years, okay, especially in community colleges, and it's about creating a set of degrees that are similar, okay, and then you put them within a pathway. So when you get a student, okay, who is undecided exactly in what program, they are gonna end, let's say engineering, and say, well, I want engineering, okay, but I'm not sure if it's mechanical, electrical, or computer. So they take a core of courses that are transferable, okay, to the degree when they decide to go for the degree. Well, so the discovery that I had when I joined the college is we had 7 pathways, and we are talking about 65 different associate degrees. Because some of the degrees, okay, we may have, let's say, an associate degree in media arts, but this degree has 4 different embedded certificates. And the reality is that when you map the courses, the reality is these degrees are very, very different. So what was going on with guided pathways is that within each set, there was some core courses and then what we used to call, and we still call them, okay, exploratory courses. And there was a huge problem, okay? These sets were so big. For example, you have business administration in the same set as culinary arts. And when you go and review, okay, you know, these programs are probably 60 or 70% different. So when you start mapping the academic pathway or the guided pathway with the degrees, there was a chance that if the student was doing the pathway, okay, they will end up with at least, okay, 3 or 4 courses in just 2 semesters that were not applicable to the degree. Mm-hmm. Well, and I say, well, this is pretty bad, okay? You don't want a student, okay, where you're promising the student you're gonna go through this pathway just to discover that at the end of the first year, guess what? 4 courses are not gonna be part of your degree. Yeah. And the problem is that our programs are extremely constrained, okay? They are very, very prescribed, okay? And we have many. 65 is just a lot of degrees. So the only way to solve this is really by expanding the number of pathways. Because you cannot really put technical trades with automotive, okay? You know, plumbing is not the same as welding. Even within the health sciences, nursing is completely different to dental health or to respiratory care. So all this year, okay, we have been working, okay, with associate deans and with the faculty to achieve 2 things, okay? First of all, make sure that we have enough sets so that if a student starts in a pathway, there is a guarantee that all the courses are gonna transfer once they decide which one of the degrees within the set. Now, what we cannot guarantee is if a student starts in pathway engineering and they want to move to nursing, that is not gonna work. Yeah. But it must work within the pathway, okay? All the degrees here in this pathway, okay, they have to have similar courses, okay, so that we can guarantee, okay, that all the courses are applicable. And I want to say that we are very, very close to achieve that, okay? So my commitment, okay, to the president was, this is going to get fixed for next catalog, okay? So by catalog 2025-26, okay, this has to be fixed. This is number 1 problem. But the second problem that I discovered is that the program maps, 90% of them, okay, had errors. And say, we have to fix this, okay? And they have errors sometimes because of human error, but sometimes it was because of the design of the programs themselves. When you have an associate degree with embedded certificates, you really need 1 program map per each one of these, okay, possibilities. And we do have many associate degrees that have embedded certificates, especially in health sciences and in the arts. And so this is what would happen, okay, we will have a program map that is nothing but the scheduling of the courses, okay? That is what is a program map. It's not the curriculum itself, but it's how do you schedule the program in the 4 semesters to complete the associate degree. So people will say, okay, this is what we had, okay? Say, well, you know, you're gonna be doing composition 1 and survey of math and certificate course number 1, okay, semester 1, and then semester 2, 3, and 4. But the problem is that when you map the certificate that is embedded, it doesn't work because each one is different, okay? It could be that course 1 and 2.
Good afternoon, SFCC and community members. This announcement is to advise that SFCC contractors are conducting work on the campus fire alert system. There is no need for evacuation during this work. Again, there is no need for evacuation during this work. Thank you.
There's no evacuation. Is that what I heard?
No fire, but you're gonna hear.
We had to evacuate.
But now we're gonna hear the beeping sound, but
Potentially.
That's better than other situations.
yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
I'm sorry. So what we are doing is, you know, if we have 65 different programs, we are gonna have 65 program maps. So we started, okay, I counted just for associate degrees, okay, we have in our catalog, okay, 32 program maps. So now we are expanding, okay, to make sure that every possibility has a program map. Because that is the idea on the guided pathway, that you are providing a no-kidding clear map from point A to graduation. So next catalog is gonna have, okay, all the program maps, okay, for all the possibilities that we have for associate degrees. So these are the 2 initiatives, okay, that have been working together, okay, to fix, okay, what Todd was calling Pathways 2.0. At the same time, okay, I want to mention, because there was a question about scheduling, and that is an area that is under me. So what we are doing is we just, okay, got the green light to acquire the software. And, you know, we are going to start going through the purchasing process. My guess is that the implementation is going to start during the summer. But there is going to be training that needs to go, okay, so that not just the academic scheduler manager, but also deans, associate deans, and chairs can use the software, okay, and it's going to give us possibilities that we don't have today. For example, prediction, okay, you know, how many sections do we need for next semester in English composition? Right now, we are just guessing, okay, we just go with the rollover of the prior year. But that's why program maps is so important, because if you have clean program maps with enrollment data, now you can have much more accurate predictions of what courses you need to offer. So that is something that we don't have today, okay? Right now it's really like guessing, okay, hey, we need one more, and you cannot do this work that is extremely complex and non-linear and ever-changing in a spreadsheet. So thank you to the president, okay, because she really helped us, okay, to push this one, okay, we really need the software, okay? I think that we were behind, okay? Even smaller institutions in the state, okay, have been years, okay, using a software for scheduling purposes. So now we're gonna have this. And now, the second piece that is gonna happen is we need a change of culture, obviously, for scheduling purposes. What we discovered is,
There is no fire. This is just.
I know, but it's just annoying.
Yes, it is.
so for this spring semester, okay, so we hired Amanda in April, okay, so she started working with deans and associate deans for the spring schedule. We only change 5% of the schedule, okay? Because we say, well, you know, it has to be manageable. Without a good software, okay, let's just go and change the schedule for 5% of the classes. So we are offering around 800, 750 courses per semester. We pick 40 in general education, okay, 40 courses, and we did the basic things, okay? Can we just move English and math so that they do not overlap anymore by 10 minutes, okay, or by a minute? Well,
You need a waiver.
I'm already expecting what's going to happen.
the good news, okay, the good news is that these very small changes in only 5% of the classes have moved the fill rate of these courses from a 68% to a 79%. Are we happy? Well, no, okay? We should be at 100%, okay? That's a goal, okay? But it's moving in the right direction. And I will say that we will be even better if all the courses that the academic scheduler manager proposed originally had happened. But I will say the institution was probably not ready, okay, to change, okay, the way that we have been doing business. So this is what is going to take some time, and we are working with the deans, okay, we're going to have a fair, okay, we're going to start organizing a fair to bring more adjuncts, okay, and the deans are going to start working with full-time faculty so that we offer the courses at the time that the students are telling us that they need the courses. And what students are asking us is two things. They want more face-to-face courses,
Yes.
and they want more evening courses. And that is a hard sell, okay, after 5 years of COVID, okay, it's hard today. We need to be here, physically present, okay, because this is what a good percentage of our students are asking us to do. So the work continues, okay, but it's moving in the right direction.
Are students asking you for 8-week courses too?
You know, there is a good a number of students, okay, that are asking for those, but I will say, okay, with all due respect to our students, probably the students do not know, okay, what they really need. I have been discussing, okay, with the VPs that it will be extremely important, okay, to move more programs into the 8-week schedule. We did that at my prior institution for the 2 largest programs, and 2 things happened. The enrollment just went to the sky, and graduation rate improved significantly. The best community colleges in the nation, okay, in terms of student performance, they have done exactly this. They have been moving to the 8-week format, okay? Odessa College, Amarillo College, because this is what really works for the non-traditional students. And it's the only way that you can really accelerate student progress, because you can turn all those part-time students, okay, into full-time students. By offering 8-week courses, now students are doing 2 courses in the first 8 weeks, 2 courses in the second 8 weeks, 1 course in the first term of the summer, and now you have 15 credits, okay, for a student, okay? They might be actually eligible for more financial aid, and there are some emotional aspects, okay, that really make the difference, okay? You know, the colleges that have adopted an 8-week schedule are the ones that have significantly moved the needle when it comes to retention and mainly graduation rate. So I will always advocate, okay, that we go, okay? Probably it's not okay for all programs. There are some programs that, yeah, we may want to keep them in 16, but that is a great.
Aquaponics, right? You can't grow plants faster than that. But outside of that, for sure, and all the national research support that it's actually helpful, even after controlling for income, right?
Yeah.
Credit accumulation is the most strongest predictor for student success. And the longer our students have to complete their degree, there's a chance that something is going to happen in their life where they're going to be off course, right? And so this is a conversation we need to have on campus.
It's building their confidence faster and it's almost close to instant gratification, which then this generation and us, we care, we want it now. Yeah.
Thank you. That was really helpful. And
yeah.
I think, yeah, it sounds like we're becoming more efficient in the direction that the college is headed. So I think hopefully it'll save people time and it'll save us money. Thank you.
I would like to see maybe part of the scheduling software, maybe that can help also with employee scheduling at some point. I know, hold on. At some point, it would be nice to have some nighttime employees on campus, since we have evening classes, to have advisors, all kinds of student services in the evening too sometimes. It feels like after 5 o'clock, there's nobody around to ask questions except if we're hanging around. And we do have evening classes, so. What did you say once, Member Wilson? Or otherwise they shouldn't pay student fee or something?
Thank you. I'm going to move us along just so we could stay on track. So thank you all very much. That was really helpful and great work. We're going to move on to the action items, non-consent agenda, and we'll start with the approval of the financial report for January. So I'll invite Mr. Tejas up.
Mayor Quintana, board members, President Rally, in front of you, you have the financial report for the month ended January 31 of this year. That report, reading off of the MD&A, the discussion and analysis, shows that we have 53.5 million in our cash balance at the end of January. In the prior year, we had 41 million in the operating account, so that's increased 12.6 million from one year to the next. Tuition and fee revenue totaled 4.7 million this January, and in the prior year we had 4.4 million, so that's grown a bit over $241,000 or 5% there. State appropriation revenue totaled 8.9 million this year, compared to 8.5 last year. That has increased 389,878 and also by 5% from year to year. Local mill levy revenue totaled 16.9 million. In the prior year, we had received 15.3 million, so that's an increase of 1.6 million, about 11% from year to year. In the category of other sources revenue, this year we had a total of $665,028. Last year we had 1.3 million, and that is a decrease of almost $650,000 and a decrease of 49%. But do remember that we had a lot of one-time money in that category last year, so this year's revenue is more reasonable in terms of what we would expect moving forward. In total, ING revenue was 32.2 million, and last year we had about 30.6 million. That's changed 1.6 million and 5% for our total revenue. On the expense side, we saw expenses increase in January 13%, totaling 24.1 million. And in the prior year, we had 21.4 million. And that has increased from one year to the next by about 2.7 million in expenses. And then just kind of glancing through the MD&A, you'll see the charts reveal that the breakdown of ING revenue, at this point in the year, we've received 53% of total revenue from state or local mill levy, and 28% is received from the state of New Mexico in our state appropriations. Tuition and fees about 14% in January. So you can see that breakdown. And again, as I mentioned earlier, tuition and fee revenue increased $241,203. That's up 5%. and totaled 4.7 million in that category. I had mentioned the state appropriation revenue previously. Looking at, tax revenue, I've already gone over that. I did want to point out in other sources, so out of that $665,028 that we had received for the year to date in January, we had, out of that amount, we had about 432,313 for our investment income. So out of that 665,028, about 432,000 is from our investment income, and that's basically the program that we have at our bank where our bank balance essentially gets invested in this program, very similar to a mutual fund, and it's generating about 4% back to the college. So we're really happy to see that helping to advance our growth in our cash. And then we have on the expense side, you're seeing the expense chart really does stay about the same through the year. And so any questions on the MD&A?
Any questions, Member Wilson, Member Gurman?
And Chair Quintana, Member Gurman and I spoke about some revisions that I think that I can make to the summary and the MD&A.
Okay.
And so I'll be sure to add some of those suggestions in the next report.
Thank you.
So if you'd like to, I could really quickly run through the detailed report.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I have one question, and you might answer this in the detail, but the expenses, so it says here that we're up 13%, so 2.7 million. Can you explain like where those expenses are increasing? Can you?
Yeah, let me show you in
Okay.
the detail report. You can kind of see it.
Okay.
It's really a lot more expenses taking place this year.
Okay.
For the category of like supplies expense, travel, things like that. That's the big difference because compensation's about level.
Okay. So you said travel and supplies?
Travel, supplies.
Where are we going?
Not the salaries?
Just kidding.
What was that, Member Gurman?
I mean, I was looking at the salaries and has gone up, which is great. I mean, I mean, you're just talking about specific expenses?
Yeah.
I mean, I look at the revenue versus expenses, and we're definitely not losing money. That's always good.
Yeah, I'm curious more on the 2.7 million that in the increased expenses, and maybe it's because we have increased revenue or we have more students, we have more program demand. I'm just trying to understand what we're spending money on that we weren't spending last year.
Right. And let me really quickly run through the detail.
Okay.
And the cash report, if you want to turn to the cash page, Mason. Should be up a bit. There we go. Some of these numbers I already mentioned, but you'll see that 53.5 million this year in our operating account compared to 40,919,398 last year, and that's that change of 12.5 million or so there. And then you see the other categories for bond proceeds. That's changed and has been drawn down quite a bit because we're pretty much completed with the microgrid project.
Okay.
I feel like I've said that for about 4 years now.
Yeah, the whole time I've been on the board.
So that's what we're hoping for. So very, very soon, within a couple weeks, we're hoping that gets closed out. You'll see the policy reserve there, and then the debt service account this year of 2,996,345 compared to last year about 1,444,000, and so that's grown there. And then the total cash numbers at the very bottom. So this is just FYI, all the cash the college has, 69,648,744 compared to 57,499,394 last year. So that's the cash. And then I think this is what we were trying to get to here. In the ING report, you'll see that, you know, the different categories for tuition and fee are showing 4.6 million compared to 4.4 last year. You know, that revenue for CTCEs included there, state appropriations, again, up 5%, local mill, 11, so forth and so on. And so you continue to go down and you'll see the expenditures by exhibit, and that's the HED exhibits where that combines compensation and also supplies, expenses, utilities, things like that. So that bottom section is where you see the total compensation. And so last year for salaries and wages, we had 13,591,574. This year, 13,565,543. And then you add the benefits. So this year you're looking at 18,108,861, and last year was 18,112,000. So it's just it's up just, or I'm sorry, it's actually pretty level, 0% change. And so where you see the big change for expenses is right there in that category for supplies and expense. I think there is more travel happening, but I think there's just also more understanding of our procurement processes and familiarity with Workday and people, you know, making purchases using their available budgets. I think last year, because people were learning how to do that and things were less familiar, I think that's why you're seeing that there. But that's the big change, so supplies expense.
Thank you.
I looked at it from a different perspective. I looked at the expenses under expenditures, comparing this year and last year. And, you know, we increased the instruction exhibit 10 by a little over $1 million in expenses. The academic support, 355,000. Student services increased by 451,000. And institutional support only by 155,000. Here's your travel. And then the plant operation increased 671,000. But definitely it's salaries, right, for instruction, and that's where we want it to go, and academic support.
I'm curious, the increase in plant operation and maintenance, why do we have such a big jump there?
Let me look here real quick. Our utilities are up just a bit, up slightly. So that's part of it. I'll have to, let me look at that and I'll be sure to send you all an email.
Yeah, we could go over that next month, but it's just something.
But I mean,
that's
it's really going to be compensation. It could be this year we've staffed up better, and last year more vacancies, you know, that kind of thing. We have a lot of employees that are in our custodial area, and so sometimes that turns over quite frequently, and so I imagine that that's kind of what it is, but I'll verify it for you.
Thank you.
And then real quickly, if you'd like, Chair Quintana, moving on to the public service. The long and short of it is everything here looks really good. Optimal, we're on the good side in the black in total for public service, and you'll see that, you know, Conference Center has revenue of $272,424 and $70,000 of expenses, so we have quite a bit of ending balance there. Kids Campus has a strong beginning balance and then substantial revenue coming in, and the revenues are outpacing expenditures through January, so that's very nice to see there. In Firstborn, there's a little bit of a beginning balance, and revenues and expenditures stay in alignment with that line item there. And for KSFR, we're starting to get a little bit more experience with the costs of that new program to the college, so you're seeing expenditures there. I will tell you, we got notified on their Corporation for Public Broadcasting grant recently, and so those will be coming in very soon. I'd expect them by next month, and they should hit here in the revenue category for KSFR, and then they are bringing in some of their own fundraising dollars that are actually, I'm told, I don't have a specific number, but pretty substantial there to help support that program.
Do we know, Nick, I don't think we talked about it in the finance committee meeting, if KSFR is, if there are any federal funds that they're receiving that may be impacted?
That would be the Corporation for Public
Yeah,
Broadcasting.
right, so all,
I just certified that for them the other day where,
they're gonna get it.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's what you were just talking about, that you've got approval that it's coming in, okay.
I didn't hear what you said, I'm sorry.
The Corporation for Public Broadcasting funds for the radio station.
Yeah, are they in
We are-
jeopardy?
No, not right now.
Okay.
Maybe next year.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we
not
need
too
to,
confident, but.
Chair Quintana, members, I think we need to follow that closely,
Mhm.
because those types of things like NPR and
Yeah.
those federally funded things sound like they could be looked at, and I think that we'll get a total amount of about 120,000 from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
Bring up that donor again from the foundation to cover the difference.
Well, they're working on it too. The Northern New Mexico Radio Foundation's still active raising funds for it too, so hopefully they'll be able to rally people to support the station.
Thank you.
And then expanding to that there's a Cuesta Tower now. I don't know if you saw it in the paper.
We heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's out here, huh? Somewhere?
In Cuesta, yeah.
Oh, in Cuesta.
Yeah, and so it's blasting out to even more communities out there, and so more listeners, and so hopefully more people that take advantage of it will help to support the station too.
Great.
So that could help. All right. And then,
Question on the auxiliary. I mean, we always want it to be break even. Revenue is going up, so that's a good thing. But the bookstore revenue right now, we need to discuss that a little bit more carefully, because I think I saw the faculty senate report, or was it the staff senate? I think it's the faculty senate report addresses that the bookstore is charging too much money. We're gonna have to, well, when I get to that report, we'll point it out. I mean, great that their revenue's going up, but not on the expense of the students, I hope.
correct, and I think we're looking at that, and boy, bookstores are a challenge these days
Yes.
with just so much competition ultimately. And so, yes, we understand the faculty sentiment. I fully get it. But we're also looking at like what we might be able to do. Because the idea really is to get students to have very affordable course materials, but somebody has to provide that service too. So it's a challenge. But yes, I get it. I think that's
Yeah.
fully understood, and we should keep talking about it because
Yeah.
we need to do the best for our students there for sure. And it's interesting, the data on the bookstores is, I think you'll probably be pretty interested in it. I mean, I'm told that we're a very high adopter of online e-book materials. And comparatively speaking, we use a lot of actual e-books, not just other available materials. And our college is a little unique there. The e-books and electronic materials can be cheaper than physical books and things like that. And so that's one good thing, but there are still quite there's still quite a bit of inventory in hard copy books that, get very expensive for students too. So it's sort of a complicated model right now, and so we're looking at some options on how we can, always make things better.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. And then the plant, nothing really to mention on the plant, other than the important part is 12.6 million for the reserve, and then we have that right next to that number under institutional monies unallocated, 18,413,765. Do remember that a lot of that was planned for in past years, adding on more compensation expenditures with the anticipation that less revenue would be there, but we have to continually monitor that and create our models for the outlook for 4 or 5 years to see what happens to that money. But in principle, that funding we were expecting about $10 million to be used to help to have a sustainable budget for the next 5 years. Knowing that we did add on quite a few expenditures for some compensation increases several years ago.
Okay,
So that's it. Any other questions?
thank you. I don't have any.
Did we lose quorum or what?
No, Chair Pugh's online.
Okay.
Can I get a motion to approve the financial report for January?
I move to approve the financial report for January.
Chair Pugh, are you able to second?
I am. I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the HED quarterly financial report. It's very standard. Looks the same as it looks every year.
It is.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve?
I move to approve the HED quarterly financial report.
Okay. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wonderful.
Thank you all. I only bring that because we have to.
Yes, thank you. We appreciate you staying on top of those requirements. Okay, and then the approval of NMHED capital forms for SFCC main and west wing building HVAC upgrades. And
With me, I have Dobby Schmidt, our facilities director, and Andrea Mueller, our assistant facilities director here with me. And this one's just that form that we have to present to the board and get approval for our larger capital projects. With that, this one's a very large HVAC project that we have in our master plan, and we've known about for a while, and now we're bringing it to you. And I'll just let Andrea, who's been really working in detail on this.
great, thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Pugh, and Vice Chair Quintana, members of the board, President Rowley. Thanks for looking through this and considering it for approval. We've been working on it for a while. We got a $2.3 million grant back in, I think it was almost 2 years ago now. So we've been kind of working on getting engineering completed on this project. We're at that stage now where we have a good cost estimate. And so this form is based on those cost estimates. You can see that when we originally submitted the request during our summer hearings, I think it was in 2022, we asked for the 2.3 million, but at that time, the costs were much lower. In the last 3 years or so, costs have increased quite a lot for HVAC equipment. So you can see that cost reflected here. Additional to that, we had originally submitted for, I think it was, how many VAVs? 165?
65.
165 VAVs around campus. After the engineering was completed, they found 303. So that basically doubles our count, and they're quite expensive to replace. With that being said, this project, if approved by you all and HED, will get started in May. That's our goal. We're going to try to hit the summer months and warmer months before we start the freezing weather, because we will have to shut down portions of campus to accommodate this. We're working on a phasing plan, which I think will be pretty good. Dobby has been really helpful with that. I'll let you talk about that. But any other questions about this project?
Any questions? Chair Pugh, Member Gurman?
I'm just curious because if whether you get any kind of state match for any kind of improvement this way, because I've been seeing a lot of bills and a lot of funds for capital outlay improvement for K-12 schools, but I wonder if the state has any matching fund for higher ed.
Yes, Member German. The funding, one of our largest funding sources for this project is a state GOB of 2.3 million. And I think we got it right around, it's during the state general obligation elections that we all vote on. And that was right around 2022 or 2023. So the process with these things are basically the board will approve these projects really 2 years before we get any money. And so, that's why you're kind of seeing it now. But again, back in 2022, we had 2.3 million. Then we're also always on these types of projects that go to HED, we have to match them with 25% of our own money. And there was a bill that kind of talked about that, I think, for that one bill for larger, it's like an endowment type of thing. What was it, 498 or something like this, House Bill 498, something like that. But they're establishing like a trust fund for larger higher ed capital projects. And, they're asking for a certain type of thing that it would be 50%. But we're very familiar with having to match with 25%, and we usually do that using our local mill levy bond election.
Right.
Yeah, so that's where we get that. And then for this project, we also have some prior year state general fund money. In 2024, we got some state general fund legislative appropriations that are available to be used for this project. And so, yes, we do. We always, for larger projects, we're always combining multiple funding sources, and it becomes very tricky, but it's also very helpful to have diversity of funds to be able to complete projects.
Yeah, cool. And I'm assuming, because I keep hearing that evaporative coolers is no longer an efficient way of cooling. We don't have any evaporative coolers on this campus, do we? Okay, good.
No.
Should all be HVAC.
Vice Chair Kwana, President Rowley, board members. No, basically those were taken out. I've been here, 17 years ago. They took them out right before I started. There were evaporative coolers in the big air handling units, but they done away with those. And so as far as the phasing goes, most of these air handling units, they're massive, they're huge. Basically they have one big electric motor, they have one huge 8-foot squirrel cage fan. So all of them are pretty much 25 years or older, plus the little VAVs that are in the ceiling. So that basically conditions it to a point, and then all the little VAVs in the ceilings, they condition it to a finer, degree. All of them have reached the end of their life, and we just have to keep working on them, keep putting, more and more money into this. So this is a great project, but it is going to be very disruptive because some of the big air handler units are going to have to remove completely. Some of them, they're just going to go in and leave the box, basically the room, and they're going to recondition and do. Right now, they're basically 2 foot by 2 foot boxes with all the fans, the controls, the VAVs are all in these little boxes, so it'll be so much easier working on. We'll go in there, we have one of them go out, we pop it out, put a new one in. But we're going to try this summer. We're going to start with basically the West Wing because that's mostly TMP. They'll be gone for the summer, so hopefully we'll be able to wipe that all out. And then it's going to be a lot of, we'll have to work with the different departments and see who can work from home, because there won't be any conditioned air for almost a month at a time in those different sections. We're going to see what we can utilize, offices that aren't being used right now, classrooms that aren't being used right now, that we can move some of these people into that are going to be conditioned at that time. So yeah, it's a big project, but it has been needed for so long. And even the control system now, we're having to physically go in if they're too hot, too cold, get up in the ceiling and actually do adjusting on the units, where once we get this taken care of, we get on the computer, do our adjusting, and it'll be taken care of. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Can I get a motion to approve the NMHED capital forms?
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all. And you're staying up, right? Okay, oops.
More.
The approval of SFCC switch and firewall replacement contract. Oh, I guess it's Mr. Tejas and Mr. Apodaca.
I don't know if there's someone from OIT here,
I think Corey's online.
Yes, okay,
And
I'll
there's,
let Corey
and there's
take it away.
John. Okay.
This is really an important OIT project, and Corey knows all the ins and outs of this contract.
Take it away, Corey.
Thank you, members of the board, Chair, President Rowley. Thank you for the time today. You know, just as things age out, we're looking to replace both the cores of our network and our core firewalls. And so this contract reflects those two goals. And so I don't know if you have any specific questions.
Did anyone have any questions about the contract?
Well, I don't like the current firewall, so I hope the next firewall is better. Because I mean, I just sent myself emails to my community college account and they still don't show up. Even though I've already asked to be whitelisted so many times. And I need to get Audrey my receipts, but I can't cross the firewall.
It's not the firewall, Corey said.
They have to be quarantined. That's, well, why do emails get quarantined? That's not the firewall?
I can help you with that, but that's not the firewall. I'm happy to follow up with you.
I've already done 2 tickets on this subject. No, seriously, guys, you know, sometimes I send emails, and they get to Los Alamos employees, but we can't get them to the community college employees. That's not the firewall?
That's a separate issue. So we'll take that offline
Okay.
and figure out what's happening with our emails. Are there any questions about the switch and firewall replacement contract at this time?
Let's see.
So is it just a replacement because it's old, or is there an improvement, or what are we looking at?
Is this the one that's...
Technology, it would be improved technology. So we're upgrading to the latest technologies. Some of it is the same or similar. You know, like our firewalls, we'll be using the very similar software because it is the same company that we're moving to.
Is this also related to the 2-step authentication?
No.
Okay. Man. And I had a technology award, and I'm like totally not into it this time. Okay. That's the next bill. Okay.
Yeah, this is like what, you know, sort of the inner guts of our network. The core is that, and the firewalls are what keeps the, you know, the right people in and the wrong people out, or the wrong things out, in a nutshell.
Great.
How long do we expect before we'll have to do this again?
You know, it really depends. Like the cores, I would say probably 8 to 10 years. The firewalls are a little bit unusual because once you run out of your sort of warranty and support phase, they can get really expensive to renew. And so in some cases, it's cheaper to just replace. Hardware, unfortunately, has sort of become kind of like a commodity. So eventually it may be just cheaper for us to replace the hardware. But, software-wise, they might last 8 to 10 years.
And do you anticipate disruptions in the process of updating and replacement?
Yeah, there will probably be some scheduled downtime for this, especially for the core. The firewalls might not be as disruptive, but we'll definitely, once we get the agreement in, then we'll order the parts and we'll see when this is going to happen, and it'll be all part of a planned implementation. So.
Thank you. Any other questions? No? All right, can I get a motion to approve the contract for the SFCC switch and firewall replacement?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
Approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lena, do you want to tell us, is there a concern you have that?
I just don't understand this whole firewall issue. And there's a lot of issues that is blocking emails and changing password every 60 days, 90 days, and having to find a phone signal to get us authentication. It's all just keeps people out. Too many people out. It's keeping me out. And I'm not a bad person, I think. So,
I can definitely follow up with some of those things
yeah,
with you.
You don't need my vote, but
we,
I'm just I don't like it. But you don't need my vote.
Just one, if you were something concerned that you didn't share, I wanted to make sure.
I shared it. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. I will vouch that you're not a bad person.
Thank you.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much, Corey. Let's see. Okay, Mr. Apodaca is online. Mr. Tejas is here. Okay, so we will now look at approving the contract for the owner's representative for the Student Hub project.
Thank you, Chair Quintana and board members and President Rowley. This is a very big project for the college. I'll just start out by reminding you that one of our biggest elements to our last ballot question that the voters approved back in last November was really a lot of that funding's going towards this Student Hub project, which is not only the Student Hub project that's, in and around where, you walk in the front doors and you see the cashier's office and you see the welcome and advising and financial aid and registration, that area. That's kind of the main focus of the Student Hub project, but it does include in there the entryway to the campus and then also wayfinding throughout the college. All of these items were planned way back when in our institutional master plan for facilities. And so that happened several years ago. I think we're going on 4 years now?
21, yeah.
Yeah, about 4 years ago, we started planning that, and that's kind of the timeline of how long these things take to start to materialize. This would be our first step at the initial stages, the very, very initial stages of getting closer to that actual Student Hub project. And what this is for the owner's rep, who will basically be a hired professional architect, I believe. They're
more like a project manager who will be hiring an architect.
right. They're the project manager that will represent the college and work very, very closely with all the designs and planning and real nuances of once we get an architect to come up with drawings and all of that, and then hire the contractor to do all of those things. These types of owners reps for very large projects are very valuable, I think, in my experience. They've always been very helpful. famous last words, but hopefully that continues with this project. And so that's kind of the individual that will just be that kind of focused person that works in concert with Helen here and Dobby's team. And so that's kind of a high-level view of what this contract does. And so Helen will add on anything I left out that's important to this contract.
Another part of this contract is renovating the 100s, 200s, and 300s areas as well. And generally, like Nick said, the owner's rep is going to be very supportive for our project management team here. There's going to be a lot of budgeting and quality control. They'll also be able to be have a more objective view of what needs to be done at the college, and just generally supportive throughout the whole phase. Their most significant. The most significant portion will be during the construction management of the project.
This this contractor will also be very key in working on the preliminary levels with the campus community in terms of you know, working with the different groups to gain input, to track that input, to also help with capturing all of the sort of issues related and ideas and things like that, and funneling that into, you know, once we get to the point where we're creating scopes of works for architects and engineers, if we need engineers, or the construction company. So that'll be very helpful. There'll need to be a lot of communication and support, as well as just meeting with the various stakeholders throughout campus, because this is again going to be another very substantial construction project on campus.
Mm-hmm. They will be helping us substantially with the space utilization and how our spaces have changed usage over the past few years.
What's the timeline? What's the timeline of this project, like from now until we actually see a new change in the front hallway?
Well, ideally, the project will be completed maybe about spring or summer of 2028. We'll be soliciting for an architect in the spring of this year. They'll be working on their schematic design development, and contract documents will probably be due about spring of next year. Then we'll be soliciting for a contractor. Construction estimated to begin in fall of 2026, and about a 18-month construction timeline. It may have to be phased, that may be extended because of different phasing that we're going to have to do, because people will be having to be moved. We're going to have to shuffle people around, basically. So that might extend the timeline a little bit.
I have a follow-up question. You mentioned that they'll be looking at the utilization over the past 5 years, but we heard earlier, right, that there's potential for more faculty or for more in-person classes. Is that being taken into consideration? So not just the look back, but the look forward as well?
We will not be changing any classrooms. That's not part of the scope of work. We'll be renovating them, but we're not planning to add or subtract from the actual classroom square footage.
So space utilization, they're looking more at the office spaces and
Yes,
that sort of thing.
correct.
Got it.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. And with more in-person students means more in-person staff and faculty. So just, again, I think it's just also really important to keep that forward look.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why an owner's rep will be helpful, because they have the background information for this project.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Is it something that we'll be getting kind of as this moves forward, kind of visualizations, understanding, so we'll see which direction we're going to review kind of what this looks like?
Most definitely, the owner's rep and the architect will be asked to do presentations along the way once they've gathered information, and then with schematic designs and presenting that to board members and a student hub committee, and et cetera. Yeah.
Mhm. And this is exclusively main campus, right?
Correct.
Okay. Do you think it's possible that there will be any renumbering of rooms in this?
Yes.
Okay. It just always bothered me that the 300 wing was below the 200 wing.
I'm not sure about that, but see what we can do.
Well, people have been, Member Wilson, people have been clamoring about that forever. That's why we made sure that in the master plan,
Yeah.
that the wayfinding and numbering and everything is very.
Because our numbering system is chronological, right? The 700s are over there and the 800s on the other end of campus, right?
I do think the master plan accounted for that, if I remember correctly, with the wayfinding.
What about improving signage around campuses? That's sooner. Isn't that happening sooner, I hope?
Part of wayfinding. It's part of this phase.
So we have to wait till 2028 for people who are always lost, trying to figure out where they are on campus. Like, we need a sign that says, you are here, and this is how you go to 415. And that's going to have to wait till this whole project is over, finished?
I think we can look at that, Chair Quintana and Member German. I think we can look at that with this individual that we'll be working with as the owner's rep to, in terms of planning. Like,
yeah.
What are the short-term needs that need to happen, sooner than later? And then if in fact we need to phase things. So, yeah, I don't know if you can do that before.
Yeah, something like a low-hanging fruit that we can get in first, because people are always lost.
And we'll discuss that with the owner's rep and make sure that that's one of the priorities.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Can I get a motion to approve this contract?
I move.
Second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Your contract's approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. We've got, okay, moving on to the communications part of the agenda. So we'll start with the Faculty Senate report. Is Dr. Miller on the line?
Did we do the consent agenda?
Yeah, we did. We approved it.
Was so quick I missed it.
Yeah.
Good job.
We're 30 minutes ahead of schedule. Just keep us there. Hi, SJ. We cannot hear you.
Can't hear you.
Still no sound. Can you hear us? Yep, okay.
Can he call in by phone?
It's always the same issue every time. SJ.
SJ, we may need to have you come in person next time.
It's like me and that Microsoft Meet. I can never get it.
Yeah, some
I
of
have
them.
the same problem. Sometimes the voice comes out of the phones. I'm not friends with Microsoft Meet either.
Perfect timing. Okay, perfect. Call us. Call us. Okay, while we wait for SJ to call in, I'm going to invite Mr. Gutierrez and Ms. Renteria up to give the Staff Senate report.
So, Vice Chair Quintana, I believe Michelle's online too, yes.
Great, thank you.
Her on here.
right, do you want to get started?
Yes, okay.
Go ahead.
Just waiting for her to.
I saw her and she's muted.
There she is.
We can hear you. Hello.
Okay. So, good afternoon, Vice Chair, members of the board, President Rowley. Thank you for the opportunity to present on behalf of Staff Senate. Our presentation is pretty quick today. We have some great news. So I'll just start out by saying Staff Senate continues to give announcements and reminders along with committee representative updates to all staff, but we have currently added an additional resource that we are proud to announce, and it's something that Member Wilson has brought to our attention, and we finally have addressed it here. We now have a Spanish translator for our Spanish-speaking staff, which has been a goal of Staff Senate to ensure that all staff have the opportunity to attend Staff Senate meetings. So we didn't forget Member Wilson. We were just working out the logistics.
Well, thank you very much.
So now I just want to turn it over to Co-Chair Michelle Renteria. She's led this initiative to accomplish what Staff Senate has been wanting to do for a considerable time. So she can give a little bit better explanations. So Michelle?
Thank you, Robert. I appreciate that. So, yes, it was a little, took a little while to get it going, but with the help of Reina, the supervisor, of many of our staff on campus that speak Spanish, and Nick Tejas and Amy and Donna, we successfully now have an interpreter that will attend, or that actually has attended our meeting last week that we had, and will be attending the next 6 Staff Senate meetings on campus. And we had the last time, at our last meeting, we had 12 individuals actually our colleagues, show up on campus and were able to participate in Staff Senate meeting. Wow. So very happy about that.
That's great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Vice Chair Quintana, we, and like Donna, Michelle said, we want to give a big shout out to Donna from HR and Brenda from HR, because they put together all the scheduling for this. There's a lot of logistics to go on involved in this. Nick and Amy for helping us with the funding. That was a big piece of it. Mason and AJ from their staff, because they helped us get the room. They set up the high flex piece. There's a lot of, pieces going. And of course, Dabi and Reina for allowing these individuals to attend and to participate in there. So we're very excited that we have them. And again, we're trying to do it's not just for them, but anyone can attend the high flex while we're having our Staff Senate meetings now. And I think with that, if I stand for any questions.
I just want to make an observation that you have great attendance. So
Yeah.
it's a good sign, both that supervisors are encouraging people to attend and allowing that, and also that you all are reaching a broader audience. So that's great. So good job.
Thank you, Vice Chair.
I like the minutes are always so organized and informative. I was excited to see that it says here on page 1, that the Santa Fe Community College in 2016, the Santa Fe Community College Governing Board passed a resolution declaring SFCC a sanctuary campus. I was excited to see that because I was gonna suggest we should do something and put a resolution together. However, the link did not go anywhere, and I searched the website for this resolution and I can't find it. So do we have a resolution or not?
Mm-hmm.
Where is it?
What, declaring this a sanctuary campus?
Yeah.
There's some details on that, but I'll look it up for you.
Yeah.
We'll report back to you, Member Gurman.
Well,
Thank you for asking that question.
I looked for it and the link didn't work in the report, and I tried to use the search engine. And I saw that there are signs inside the bathroom doors that tells people what to do about, I don't know who's responsible for that, what to do in case of ICE contacting them. That's good that those are on the doors, but we need them in Spanish too. So that would be great. Thank you. I don't know who's responsible.
Thank you. I'm gonna move us along for time's sake, and I saw that SJ is on the line.
Don't we have till 5 o'clock?
We have until 4, but we have some other.
I thought we had till 5. Oh, okay.
Thank you. But I'm gonna move us along. Anything else, Ms. Renteria or Mr. Gutierrez?
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
great,
Appreciate
thank
it.
you. SJ, thank you for your patience, and thanks for letting us skip ahead momentarily. So we want to make sure that you have time, so go ahead and get started.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
The
Thank
agenda
you.
says
Yes,
till
sir.
5.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Pugh, President Rowley, Member Gurman, Vice Chair Quintana, Member Wilson, and I cannot see Member Siegel or President Archuleta. So if they're there, good afternoon. So I have a few updates since our last governing board meeting. We have 2 adjuncts who have come on to replace current people that have had to step off due to conflicts with their schedules. Tara Voigt, who's in the alternative licensure teacher program with me, she's come on as our adjunct rep. And Celeste Herrera has come on from math, and she is going to be splitting her adjunct responsibilities along with Tony Kaufman, our communication and secretaries chair, to give Tony a little bit of reprieve because she's got 2 roles currently. And we're excited to have their energy on and to have more attendance from our adjunct pool. One of the things that we talked about in Senate, which I really want to commend the campus on, we know that there are executive orders that are hitting a number of different populations across campus, and there just seems to be, things seem to be a lot more collegial, and I think people are really looking out for each other, and that's just been a really nice, supportive change that people have noted. So thank you to everybody that has, really been part of that process. I want to report back on the Gen AI committee. Joseph Clemens and the committee co-chairs Sarah Hood and members Val Nye, Lenny Gannis, Tony Kaufman, Julie Duncan, Mason Kovac, and Jason Sanborn put together the most phenomenal panel. We had Dr. Melanie Mitchell and Dr. Melanie Moses from the Santa Fe Institute, and Chairperson Wilson, you recommended those names, so thank you for that recommendation. They came to talk to us about the current state of AI systems and how it compares with human intelligence. It was absolutely fabulous. We have the meeting link if anybody is interested in that. It's also in our minutes. Actually, it's not in our minutes. But I do recommend, I don't think I can just put it in the chat here, so I'll send it to Aubrey and she can send it out to everybody. Last meeting, I believe we talked about having an AI type of presentation to the board. So I want to pause for a second to ask if that's something, I know Margaret, the AI team was in conversation with you, if that's something that the board would still like, and if so, what you would like to see.
SJ, thank you for bringing that up. There are several topics that the board is interested in getting presentations on, but given the timing of the meetings and the budget approval, we're not sure that we'll be able to get them in before May. So stay tuned. Okay. We will absolutely get you detailed questions ahead of any presentation, but I would say at this point you probably won't be asked to do that before May. Is that fair?
Yeah,
is that
okay? We'll probably have a whole new set of presentations around AI by then anyway.
Yeah.
With the rapid changes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll continue to move on. We had some issues with simple syllabus that I'll just very briefly bring up. Simple syllabus is not so simple, and we've had some issues with their systems shutting down, and we just want to make sure that the campus is on top of that along with what's happening on our end, because unfortunately we had a shutdown of simple syllabus which impacted the teacher ed program and the humanities, where the system went down, and not only were we not able to access syllabi for 2 weeks, our students weren't either, and our syllabi were erased. So that was the problem, because usually simple syllabus were given a warning so that we can quickly download and save our simple syllabi as PDFs. Regardless of that, we still had to go back in and add it, but we didn't have those PDFs to copy from. So that was it was pretty controversial within some of our areas, especially for people who have multiple syllabi. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward and those issues will get resolved. Let's see, we had 2 people come from Accessibility Services to give us an update. They are doing absolutely phenomenal work based on some of the changes around Title IX in terms of support of pregnancies. Monique Romero and Stephanie Segura came to update us about the accommodations for pregnant and postpartum students. I'm not going to go into those modifications, but it helped to really inform us about those new processes. Yash, Margaret, Donna, and Laura attended to provide updates on policies 3.5, academic program review, and 440 special circumstances. So that is in motion. We've gone ahead and moved that forward with them. And the last issue we really wanted to turn over as a question. It was brought to our attention, and many of us hadn't even heard of this, that many seniors are registering in classes over in fitness, but it wasn't allowing the applicable time or access for our current students. And as it is now, we know that seniors can register for their discounted rates 24 hours after registration begins, but they were registering, before students could get in. And so we really want to bring that to your attention to figure out a way forward so our students aren't not able to register on time, and then we don't want to discourage the senior population from taking courses. So that's that point, and hope to get some feedback on that. And lastly, I just want to mention that PDAC, which is the committee that I co-chair with Marcos Maez, President, Equity, Diversity Advisory Committee, we are going to be hosting an event called the Culture of Hope on April 16th from 11 to 2, and we are currently inviting people from all across Santa Fe, the community and the SFCC community to really celebrate what Culture of Hope means to them, and we're hoping to bring in a speaker to support and to highlight that day. So at this point, I stand for any, and I guess the bookstore issue,
Yeah.
Vice Chair, we should postpone for now, since I think Nick brought that up.
Yeah, I brought it up, but
Okay.
yes, I would like to, we'll get a follow-up on that hopefully next month or so.
Okay. Okay, so with that, I stand for any questions.
Any questions for SJ?
He predicted my questions, already answered them.
SJ, I have
3
one
questions that I knew you were going to ask.
You knew that, exactly, there were 3.
SJ, I have one question about the simple syllabi. Has the issue been resolved, and is this a common thing? Like, do the syllabi just disappear after a certain period of time, or is it, how does that work, or what happened? Do you know?
I know that simple syllabus, I can't give you the exact answer for that, but there were some outstanding concerns that they needed to be removed for a temporary period of time. But in the past, we have received information that said simple syllabus is going to be taken down so that everybody could download a PDF so they at least have that. Then they could reconstruct and put it back up.
Okay.
But we weren't given that warning, and so I think it was by Thursday or Friday, the same week of classes, it was inaccessible to everybody.
Thank you. Ms. Peters is here, so she's going to come up to the mic. I think she has some additional information to share. But thank you for that, SJ.
Vice Chair Quintana, members of the board, President Rowley, just briefly, Simple Syllabus recently went through an update that caused some problems that needed sorting out because of that update, and we've had to work closely with Simple Syllabus in order to get that sorted. There was a problem where a couple of departments had some of their syllabi blanked out, if you will, and we have been in the process of researching the details of that, and I'm not going to bore you with those, but this is not something that happens routinely, and it is something that I think we've sorted out at this point.
Okay. And is simple, so I'm
Simple
guessing
syllabus.
we pay them for a service, is that how this works?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a template for the syllabus so that all of our classes are using the same template so that students are looking in the same places for the same information, that kind of thing, a standardization, if you will, of the syllabus.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Both.
I'm wondering, is that within our contract with them? Are they in breach of our contract, or do we have any recourse for them doing that? Because obviously, a lot of our staff time and resources have been used up to solve their problem.
Sure, and I don't know the answer to that right now, Board Member Wilson, but I will certainly look into that.
Okay.
And I want to piggyback, Board Member Wilson, on your question. I called Simple Syllabus because I was asking them, don't they have a back end where they save the syllabi, right? Isn't it cataloged somewhere, archived somewhere that we can get it back? And Simple Syllabus, this is what they told me, they don't have that capability. It's something that they're aware of and they want to work on, but even if we wanted to go back and try to find our prior syllabus that was taken down, there's no way to do it at this point. You can go back to a prior semester, those are there, but the current semester, we're gone.
So it seems. So SJ, is it common practice or part of the training that requires like either the school to have backups of those or for faculty to maintain those backups? How does that work?
There are reminders that as soon as you finish a course, just as your own, backup, to go ahead and download those PDFs. But I don't know how many people are doing that. And so I think, having really important reminders that come out every semester would be helpful. Download PDF as soon as you finish your course. So at least it's there.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think I'm a member Wilson of, are they in breach of their contract for us to recoup some of the loss?
It might be a best practice for the institution to, at beginning of the semester, to archive everything just in case it ever happens again.
And I will certainly look into that. I don't know what's possible in terms of us being able to do that, but I'm happy to look into it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Ms. Archuleta, did you have a question for SJ?
I just wanted to add on to what SJ was saying about students, degree-seeking students and senior citizens. So I know as a degree-seeking student, I have run into issues when trying to register for classes, where the classes that I needed to continue on with my degree were filled, because because what happens is right now we have the priority students where after you have 30 credit hours, you're allowed to register a day earlier than the rest of the community. But it's very common for a lot of the senior citizens who take these classes over and over to have accumulated 30 credits by this point, even if they're not degree seeking. So that does create an issue still for students like me who need to take certain classes, but we're getting kind of fighting for them along with the senior citizens. So I just wanted to add on to that, is that I know that I was told, I don't know if this is still true, but one faculty member did tell me that UNM, the way that they kind of deal with this issue is that they allow the senior citizens, if they want the discount, I was told a week before the semester starts is when they can sign up for classes, and that's how they handle that. If we could maybe possibly look into something similar, I think that would help the degree-seeking students not get behind on their classes.
They get priority.
Yeah.
Ms. Peters is.
It's been bad.
If I may, I'm sorry.
You may. Thank you for coming up. Please just stay sitting there.
Hopping up and down and up and down. We are in the process, Dr. Ortiz Gallegos, the deans, myself, working on a new procedure around this issue. And so I would just say stay tuned, because I think we will be able to make some progress in that regard. And I just want to say for the record, we're delighted to have all of our students and all demographics of our students, and want to serve them all to the best of our ability. And so we will certainly work on this, and we have a plan put together. So it's just a matter of putting the details in place and
thank you.
Going live with it, so to speak. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for SJ? Okay. Great. Well, we will move on to the student government report with Ms. Archuleta.
Okay. Vice Chair, President Rowley, members of the board, thank you for the opportunities to speak on behalf of student government. So this February, this semester's it's been a little rocky for student government. We started the semester not meeting quorum. So that's made some major changes to student government. Right now we have 2 members, myself and Vice President Archuleta, but we've been working with administration to kind of work around this issue and see how we can continue being advocates for student body here on campus for the rest of the semester until we find new members to join. February 6th, AVP Ortiz Gallegos and Marcos Maez did training session with Vice President Archuleta and I, where we were able to go over the SGA Constitution and bylaws. My Vice President and I, we were able to ask some questions that we've been dying to get answers for, and it was a very informative training. We are grateful to Marcos and Tomasina for taking the time to run us through things, and we can't wait to have our follow-up training. With SGA for the first 3 weeks, while we were working out what we can do as a team without quorum, we had a lot of time to be looking over the SGA Constitution, so that's what we've been doing. So right now we've been doing mostly preparing for changes that we want to make. Once we do meet that quorum. Just making minor changes to language in the Constitution to make things more clear. Other than that, we've been continuing with our outreach on campus. We've been starting the 4th week of this semester. We were able to start continuing on with our outreach, and Vice President Archuleta and I reached 260 students. With that, we have several students who have expressed interest in joining SGA as senators and executive team, so we're excited to see, hopefully, this second half of the semester will be much stronger than we are now. With that being said, this concludes my report. I now stand for any questions.
Any questions?
Yeah. What time do usually the SGA meets? Is it during the day, evening? When do you guys meet? Like, how can you get more students to come to your meetings? Like, what time of the day do you meet?
So our SGA governing board meetings are from the third Wednesday of the month from 3 to 4 is when they are. Yeah.
And that's that's just the board meeting, or is that the membership, like the students? That's where you invite the students to come to it? Yeah. And how's that attendance?
It's poor.
Yeah.
It's pretty poor, yeah.
Have you tried doing it like we're doing it here, which is hybrid and some
Yes,
virtual?
we do a hybrid. We have it online as well as in person.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. Most people just don't seem very interested in coming to board meetings for the student government. Yeah.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, this seems like a challenge each year, is my sense. But I don't know if Marcos or Tomasina would agree. I think even our time, Zuby, there was an active group, but it didn't last for very long.
I mean, there was one time when the assembly was filled up the biggest lecture center. But I know one thing that they were concerned about at one time, there was a move asking for there to be a period of time during the week when there were no classes. That would be when the student government would meet. And I know there's a lot of challenges with that in terms of scheduling classes. So, but I know that was an idea one group had, was could we figure out a way that no one could say I have class then, but that's.
I think that's a problem we have even with with joining, not just, regular students attending the meetings, but joining student government is, they have to be able to attend certain meetings. So if they have classes at that time, then that makes it difficult for us as well.
There was also a time in the Constitution where every club was required to have they had to send somebody or their club would dissolve.
Yes, and that, I think, helped attendance to our meetings. But I've been told that also threw off quorum as well. So if certain amount of clubs didn't attend, then the meeting couldn't commence. So that's why they changed those rules as well.
Well, as you're looking at your constitution, if you're not already doing this, lots of schools have different ways of doing student government. So may be helpful to look at community colleges with similar demographic and see what options might be available.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. Okay, President Rowley, you get an unlimited amount of time, just so you know.
You should never.
We were saving it for you because there's a lot that we need, that we want to give you plenty of time to cover if you need to.
On.
Yes, there's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on, and I hope you all have questions. So I will start off talking a little bit about the legislative session. We are a little bit more than halfway through. Yesterday was Higher Education Day at the legislature, and there's always good attendance at that, and so it's nice to see recognition. Not really many legislators in attendance because apparently the Senate got called on the floor at the last minute, and typical. So, you just kind of work around that kind of thing. But there are a few bills that I want to bring to your attention, some things that we are working on in different ways, some things we're concerned about. On the Senate side, you may have seen on the news that there was a Senate Bill 266, which got tabled in Senate Ed. And so this was a bill that I'll just say straight up was in response to Western New Mexico University and their spending spree, or whatever you want to call it.
High travel expenses.
Yeah, I don't know that. So what this bill is proposing to do, there are a couple of different parts to it, and one part we are very supportive of, but the first part would have been pretty difficult for us to work with. So the first part was that all administrative contracts that were more than 10 times the amount, including benefits, of the lowest paid employee would have to go to the Department of Finance, and then I think the Attorney General would also have to review them, and there would be like a 30-day period that they would have to be able to review those. So that was the part that everybody was losing their mind over. And the reason is that, first of all, the Department of Finance pretty much has said they don't have the capacity to do that. I don't even think it would affect us, honestly, at least right now. No one's salaries are in that range, including mine. But at a lot of places, there might be a whole slew of vice presidents at a major university or something like that. And so I think it would make hiring very difficult, and it would probably make New Mexico look like a state where you can't, it's going to be hard to be competitive when you have people that are probably in multiple searches and all of that. The other part of the bill that we may come back in some sort of an amended form and that we would support is scrutiny of any kind of separation agreement. So I think that the Attorney General is very upset with the separation agreement that the Western Board worked out. I think everybody is in agreement with that. And so but right now, that's just something that the board is able to work out. And so, they were allowed to do that. The other thing that we were really concerned about with the first part of the bill really is that it would have usurped quite a bit, in my opinion, board authority to make contracts. And so we brought up the issue with our accreditation in that, the board is supposed to be free from any outside influence, and that, you're not currying favor to anyone else, including the state government, about how you contract. So there were a lot of problems with that. But if they come back with an amendment, then maybe we will be able to work on something that just has to do with separations, and that anything like that would have to get approved before you could do that. There's the delay at the beginning could be harmful. The delay at the end, I wouldn't think would be such a big deal. The other one the other Senate bill that, I can't remember what day this is going to be heard, but anyway, it's Senate Bill 492. And it's listed as New Mexico State Online. And this is a bill that would create some kind of a portal that would essentially combine, I've heard the bill says all colleges 4-year and 2-year. I've talked to different people about this, and apparently at one time there was talk that it would only be the 4 years, that they didn't think that financially it was workable to include the 2 years. We don't want to be included. So what they would be creating is essentially one online college that everyone would fold into. So there is not a lot of support for this outside of New Mexico State. I don't think you're probably going to see UNM, ENMU, colleges that have very successful online programs of their own right. I pointed out to the Chancellor of New Mexico State Online that probably the highest enrollment in general education in the state is going to come from CNM. And so not taking all these things into consideration is just that they want an appropriation before they have a plan. And so, and I think that the intent is to work on keeping we lose, I can't remember if it's 11,000 or something like that, students to out-of-state online programs every year. And so the sponsor is really trying to work on that problem. And I think that's a problem to address. I'm not sure this bill exactly works on that problem. So we'll see. This just got dropped. It was just dropped last week, so I don't know what's going to happen. But the other piece of this that they're trying to address is the use of third-party online providers. So apparently there are a couple of colleges that use third-party online providers for their online courses. And so the cost-sharing model for those programs is that the college who is offering the courses gets 40% of the revenue, and then the online provider gets 60% of it. It might be the other way, but anyway, you're still giving up a huge revenue share to offer classes that way. And so, I think there are only 2, maybe 3 that do that. And so it would be nice to be able to help those colleges get away from that cost model. But that, again, I think could be handled a different way. So this is going to be a wild bill, and I'll keep you posted on that.
Was that also a concern about fill rates? I remember earlier there was some discussion about low fill rates at colleges, and so maybe having only one Psychology 111 offered to everybody. Was that part of that too? Or
It possibly, if this really did happen, I think that would become part of the conversation, but I don't think that they've gotten to that point yet, because I don't think there's been that kind of analysis of everybody's fill rates and capacity and things like that. There would probably be severe tuition implications, I would assume. And it may be that, community colleges, the independents anyway, are considerably less expensive than the 4 years, and so we might drive the cost down. That might be problematic for their revenue model. But some on the positive side, what they're trying to offer is mostly enhanced marketing, so that, you know, they'd even had, I had a conversation with a couple of people from New Mexico State about this being New Mexico Online, which might have gotten further down the road than New Mexico State Online. I think is not palatable to their four-year brethren.
Are they trying to do something similar to chess?
No, I think what they really want to do is use like the Arizona State model and try to grow the overall online enrollment by, instead of having a bunch of smaller entities combined in one. I don't think that the demographics are similar at all, and so I think there's still a lot of work to be done. I think maybe something could happen, but it was just kind of like thrown out there in my opinion. I truly had never even heard of it until maybe 2 weeks ago, and then the bill was dropped last week. One bill that we are supporting very loudly is House Bill 64, which is a tuition bill, and what it does is it's proposing to change the state's anti-discrimination clause as it relates to tuition. So in 2005, mostly through the work of Somos Unidos and Pueblo, they passed a law so that non-citizens could get in-state tuition if they graduated from a New Mexico high school, and there were a couple of other ways. So that's all great, but they could not get the Opportunity Scholarship or the GROW money that's been appropriated for non-credit training and all of that. So what this tuition bill would do is allow non-citizens who have either attended adult education for 2 semesters or paid New Mexico State income taxes for 2 years. It would allow them to get opportunity. You'd have to still qualify the same way, like the number of credits you're taking and things like that. But the Opportunity Scholarship, and what they're really interested in is a GROW money, because I think, every time they talk about, Somos talks about the programs they're interested in, it's kind of like they've looked at Chris's catalog, because those are the programs that come up that people are very interested in. And some of these are, ways that people could be entrepreneurial, so you wouldn't have to necessarily work for someone, you could have your own business. And so we supported that Monday, I think, in the committee, and it's moving along to its next committee assignment. It's gotten through 2 committee assignments, and I suspect it'll be moving along really well. Nick referred a little bit to HB 449, which is the new capital bill that's being proposed. So they've split it up. There's a certain eligibility criteria for 4-year colleges and certain things for 2-year. They were trying to set a threshold for large projects, and so the threshold for I think it's just for the 4 years, but I think it might be for all of it, but $50 million. So we don't have a $50 million project. I don't see us having a $50 million project. But the other way that we could qualify, and I'm very interested in this, is that what they're interested in looking at are capital projects that address student life. So they're talking about what LFC has said is they're interested in the spaces students need and want in between classes. So that could be like tutoring space. I don't think it would be like, a lazy river or something like that. But the other thing, I think that, library space is a good candidate for something like this. Different types of study rooms. And I think Santa Fe Community College has done a really good job at optimizing what we've already appropriated and trying to do that. But if we could get some of this money, we could do even more. So we're looking at how we might be able to do that. They have not put a monetary amount on this bill yet. So I think what they would do is create the concept, and then presumably what we'd have to do is follow the regular capital process and go to the Capitol Roadshow that, you know, they do every summer and present our project, and go on from there. But I do think that is, and that is, to Member German's question, it's very different than the public school fund. And the public school fund, I think, is really nice. It's really easy and it's really straightforward. And for us, there's like a whole lot of different pieces that you have to kind of watch and know where you can access something. The other thing that I just want to bring to your attention, just to let you know that we don't have anything to do with this, but it sounds like we do. House Bill 531 is for the Santa Fe Osteopathic College. That's not us. So if you see that and you know, if you're asked to analyze it or something like that, I'm pretty sure it's a group out of Florida that is working with Highlands on like a PA level anesthesiology degree, but they also want to do an osteopathic college, which would be another medical school. And I understand they want to do it in Santa Fe. So, but that is not, you know, we are not building a medical school, just in case somebody thought that was going to happen.
We could rent land to them.
Well, actually, we have talked to them about, with their Highlands program, about space, and so we may, you know, that would probably be our role. I think those are all of the bills that I wanted to mention to you. So our chess funding. We started out in the LFC budget, so we need $10 million for this year, and then we'll need $10 million next year. We tried the strategy that they could just give us the 20 now, and then we would not be bugging them next year. I do think there was some interest in that because we have gotten kind of annoying. But they also like to hold everybody accountable, and you know, we have to go through this new PCC process where we show them what we've accomplished the year. I think it's a good accountability measure. So the LFC put $2 million in the budget originally. We went through the House kind of catch-up, cleanup process. We got half of the $8 million that we still need from the House at this point. And the House said that we would, you know, the Senate is ready to work with us on the other half, so that we should be in good shape. So the Senate has the budget bill now, so they're working on the budget bill. And when Senate Finance starts doing some more of those committee hearings to look at the IT projects, then we'll be there on Saturdays to, you know, pitch our case. And I will say Senator Trujillo has been extremely helpful and very supportive in advocating for us and all that. House Bill 2, though, as it's gone to what's gone over to the Senate, does have 4% in compensation increase, and it also has some cybersecurity money, so that, you know, I can't remember who had the latest breach, but we're all just, I feel like, a step away from having that happen, and we've had some narrow escapes from that. So we'll continue to work on that. Chess is also invested in cybersecurity. We got a federal earmark a couple of years ago, and so we are, you know, kind of doing our own thing aside from what we'll get from the state. I want to mention that I think everybody knows about the Dear Colleague letter that came out on February 14th. These Dear Colleague letters from the Department of Education are pretty common, but this one was the weirdest thing I think I've ever seen in many years in higher ed. It basically said that any college that continued to offer any kind of DEI, any department, any positions, really any kind of work that was designated as DEI would lose their federal funding. And so, you know, that's like problematic on all sorts of levels. And you think, okay, this is a Dear Colleague letter, is not a law. It's guidance and advice. So we don't yet know what the legal enforcement here will be. Of course, it's already been challenged in court. But my assumption is they'll try to figure out some other way to kind of keep this pushing this along. But what I want to be really clear about is that whatever these dear colleague letters come out and say, this one was basically like a reinterpretation of the Civil Rights Act in a very bizarre way. Santa Fe Community College is very clear about its values. We will not change our values. We will study the words that we use, but we are not altering what we are doing. We have very clear projects that we are looking to accomplish. We are concerned about all of our students. We look at our students by all sorts of different metrics, and we try to help students who do not seem to be succeeding quite as well as we would like them to. And so we have targeted approaches for all kinds of different student groups, and we will absolutely continue to do that. We will be equitable in all of our hiring across campus. We will absolutely try to find the best candidates, and that's what we do now. But we want to make sure that we give everybody a fair chance and that we're looking at every possibly qualified candidate. So we will lay low on some of our language as we've been advised to do by ACCT, AACC, HLC, everybody. But that doesn't have anything to do with changing what we're going to do. So, but really what we're doing is kind of assessing what we have so that we're aware of how we talk about certain things, and then we'll follow what's going on. I can tell you that NMICC talks about this every single Thursday morning at 7:30. We meet weekly during the session. We talk about bills, but we also talk about what's going on in the federal landscape, what everybody's response is, any kind of complications that anybody's seen or anything like that. And so it is of great assurance to me to be that connected with our colleagues and knowing what everybody's doing in this space. We're also assessing our federal grants and looking at what we have, looking at who's paid out of federal grants. Last Friday we had a board finance committee meeting, and Chair Quintana asked us to look at our federal grants, how many people we have paid on federal grants, and what the work is that we have done, and to just, that's the first step essentially in figuring out what we need to do. To my knowledge, we only have one area, and Chris, that's the EPA grants where we have. It's on again. Okay. Not officially, just through an intermediary. Okay. So, but the EPA training grants were the only grants where we'd actually had a clear cease work order, and so we ceased work mostly because they ceased funding, and but now apparently that's back on. So we have had some hiccups with funding portals, where we were having trouble accessing the reporting for Title V. There's a big annual report that's due very soon, and they kind of sealed it off to where we couldn't even access it. We do know that a lot of most federal grant people have been asked not to return phone calls, not to answer our questions, not to do anything at all to help us. So that is all highly irritating, but we're trying to help each other. But just so that you all know, we basically have $2.6 million with benefits and federal wages every year. So that's a fair amount. Some of those wages, so the state is looking at this the same way we are. And so the state of New Mexico, I just saw where the governor is likely to call a special session because they want to look at where the state might be needing to supplement for federal money that could be closed off. And there are a couple of grants that we have that are big that have a state component and a federal component, and so I would be interested in talking to the state about how they might want to work with us on a couple of those. But we also have 38 positions that are in part paid by federal money. Now most of those are not fully federal money. You know, one of the things that we do, like with our large Title V grants, we may hire a person 100% on that grant fund, but the stipulations of the grant are that we take that person down every year to where within a couple of years we're only paying a quarter of that person's salary. So that, and we have a planned phase in of getting that person into the college's financial system. So we're on it. You know, I can't say anything other than I think it's chaotic. I know it scares everybody. It scares me. But I do feel like we are going to be fine. And if we do have a couple of projects that we end up that are probably, my guess would be they'd be very specific projects, but what they're looking at are anything that they can find a DEI component to, or anything that they can find something that relates to like a green jobs type thing, which is, those are areas that we tend to get our grants in. So we're watching it. We're looking at, again, how we identify ourselves in different spaces like that. And then the last thing that I want to mention, and this is good news, Yash might remember more of the details of this than I do. So the Mayor's Guaranteed Income Program, you know, for what, 2 years, 3 years, we've been waiting on the data, 3 years, from the University of Pennsylvania, who was our partner in this project. So this was the project where we took 100 students and they were each given $400 a month in guaranteed income, like sometimes they're called stipend programs or whatever. And then they were part of a study with the University of Pennsylvania, and they were looking to see if having that guaranteed income ease their financial burden, help them stay in school, help them work less, and just be overall more successful. So it did. And so we're working with the mayor's office right now to figure out how to disseminate this to the public. And then Kelly and I have been talking about how to fund the next iteration of this. And Kelly has a donor who's pretty interested in doing this, and I think knows how to do it, and would actually be able to help us a lot, you know, in going forward and trying to continue a guaranteed income program. The data is compelling enough that I would say it definitely does help. There's a couple of bills out there right now where different groups are looking at piloting similar type programs like that. Sometimes you can't tell that's what it is because they try to call it something weird so nobody knows what it is. But if you read the whole thing, you can tell that's what it is. So anyway, that is my report. I realize that's a lot of stuff, but I'm happy to try to answer any questions if I can.
Thank you. Questions for President Rowley?
So the Mortgage Finance Authority, do they get federal funding, or is that just purely a state program?
They do get federal funding, yeah.
Do we think that any of those programs maybe?
I haven't heard anything, but Chris, do you know? Generally, somebody knows more than I do.
I knew Chris was going to answer this when I asked it. But
Board member Wilson, it died. Okay.
I'll speak loud.
There it goes.
Here we go.
Speak up. So the Mortgage Finance Authority runs a weatherization program in the state of New Mexico for low-income homeowners and people around the community. And they get half of their money from the federal government, and they get half of their money from the state of New Mexico. We have been in communication with them in the last few days. Their federal funding has been at this point shut off. They tried to go in and get reimbursements, and they could not. There is a piece of legislation going through to add more weatherization money on the state side, so it'll be interesting to see if that passes. So for right now, the way our program works is we run our weatherization program basically like contract training, and so entities hire us to train their workers, and then generally they pay us sometimes with federal funds, sometimes with state funds, sometimes with their own corporate funds. So we are watching this closely. We're also making arrangements that if necessary, we can move some of that training over to the New Mexico Grow Workforce Fund, So I did submit that to the state earlier when they asked us what kind of programs that we would fund. So that program and the environmental technician training program from EPA, both of those could be paid for with state money. So we're keeping a close eye on it, and we hope for the best, but the weatherization money in particular has been particularly targeted.
I had heard that they're actually going to LI Heap and taking money out of people's bank accounts that were already expended. That's what you get when you let people get into people's personal data.
I haven't heard about that, but I'm unsurprised by many things.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you.
For President Raleigh? Thank you, Chris. Well, thank you, President.
I do have a question. Oh.
Is that
I have
SJ?
a question.
Who is on?
Becky, Becky, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Hi. So, do you mind if I ask you a little bit about the protective measures that we're taking around the use of the word equity at SFCC right now?
Well, all I can say right now is that we are looking at all of our online presence. We're looking at all of our documents and things like that, and assessing everything before we, and kind of assessing and waiting and watching at the same time before we look at, changing anything. But I think that making changes to names of committees or anything like that, that doesn't affect the work that anybody's doing. And so we haven't done that yet, but it may come to that.
Okay, because the reason I was asking is I spoke with Todd, and we just found out that the PDAC website came down, and it's being closed, I guess, and our sanctuary statement is closed. I think Chairperson German asked about that link. We know the Indigenous Land Statement is now down, so those
things are going to make us targets.
Yeah.
Those things are going to make us targets.
I'm gonna ask folks from the audience to hold their questions. This question period, thank you, SJ, is only for board members, and issues related to the language used on our website, I think, is going to need to be discussed at a later time. This is not the appropriate forum for that. So thank you. With that, so not hearing any other questions from the board members, I do want to open it up for board reports, discussions, and other business. And I'm first going to ask my colleagues to go first, and then I'll report out on the Finance Committee and any takeaways I had from the National Legislative Summit. So any board reports or updates from folks?
Yeah, I just want to let everybody know that we're bringing a film, a documentary called Count It Out on Pi Day on March 14. We're bringing it to the campus. It is a really great documentary about, I've watched it twice already, and it's amazing, about how important math literacy is to every citizen in the United States, how important to know, to understand how much math is around us and in our everyday life. And it tells stories of people how math literacy, just by being a little bit literate more in math, changed their lives. It's a 90 minutes documentary. It's going to be at the planetarium on March 14, Pi Day. And at 12:30, we're going to serve pies, and then we'll start the film. We're going to start the film at 1 o'clock till 2:30, and then, believe it or not, there'll be people who want to speak and have a discussion, and we're hoping that will generate some more interest in math education. Thank you.
Thank you, Member German.
Everybody's invited. It's open to the public. You'll see flyers around.
A couple of my priorities involve the public schools, and they're in a little turmoil, so I expect I'll be able to report something next month, but this wasn't the month to collaborate with them.
No, it was not. Thank you for reading the room. Chair Pugh, do you have any updates?
Nothing to update for me, but good job, you guys.
Thank you. Okay, I'll give a couple of updates for the Finance Committee. So on January 31st, Member Wilson and I met with the finance team and Ms. Swadine to go over the budget for contract training and continuing education so that we could understand that better. And that was really helpful information. So Chris, thank you very much for putting that together for us. Nick, for you and your team. Last Friday, as President Rowley indicated in her report, we pivoted a bit from our original priorities for the Finance Committee and decided to do a deeper dive into the federal funding that the college is receiving to have a better sense of how our employees may be impacted, especially those who are paid by federal grants, and to begin the conversation of how the college and maybe even the state may be able to pick up some of those costs. And so I want everyone to know that we are looking closely at this, and as far as our fiduciary responsibilities are concerned, really thinking about the college's priorities and our budget that we must approve in May, I believe. So that's coming up quick. So again, this is something that we're paying close attention to. A few of the items that are coming up for the Finance Committee, we're going to be looking at compensation as that study gets reported back to us, or as we get information from the comp study. So the Finance Committee, again, will be looking at that information and our budget and seeing what's possible, what the recommendations are, that sort of thing, as well as chess. We're hoping, we want to postpone that discussion as long as possible, hoping that the state gives us all of the funding, and we're pretty optimistic about that, but we also need to be prepared in the event that something wonky happens, as has been the trend in our society these days. So that's the Finance Committee. A group of us, well, all members of the board, minus Member Siegel, attended the National Legislative Summit in DC a few weeks ago, and we were meeting with the Association for Community College Trustees and lobbying our various delegations to promote legislation for community colleges. The green paper is available on the National Legislative Summit resource page for the Association for Community College Trustees, if anyone is interested in seeing that. And really things that we were looking at were Pell Grant, Workforce Pell, not doing away with the taxation on Pell Grants, WIOA funding, or Pell for WIOA. Sorry, there were a lot of them, and I've slept since DC.
Cost or risk sharing.
Risk share. So and also rejecting risk sharing. Why this is important. So budget reconciliation. So the House yesterday passed their budget plan. The Senate had passed it, I think, while we were in DC, maybe, or close to. And now they are going to be able to start the reconciliation process, which part of that included risk sharing for community colleges. And so basically, they will set certain expectations and requirements and outcomes that our students must meet. And if they don't meet those, then we will be responsible for paying the feds back. We do not support this, obviously, and so that is what we were talking to our delegation about. We were there with CNM and New Mexico Junior College out of Hobbs, so we spent a lot of time talking to the various staffers there, and the one thing that I think we came away with, or many things, but the important thing is that they're all working together. All our representatives, our senators, are working closely together to make sure that they're in lockstep in making sure that New Mexico is taken care of, and that some of these priorities are looked at. One thing that I will encourage everyone to do, and something that we were encouraged to do, is if anything happens on our campus, right? If ICE shows up on our campus, we need to let the staffers know immediately. If we cannot get our money, we can't do any of our drawdowns or our reimbursements, we can't access the Title V portals to submit our reports, our delegation wants to know right away. And so our team, or the board members that were there, working closely with Dr. Rowley to make sure that she has the contact information for those people, which she's already in contact with them. But again, they want stories from us. They want to know how these executive orders are impacting our students. And so I think for us, it's important to encourage our students, our staff, our faculty to reach out to the delegation, both as I think as the community college, we want to work with Dr. Rowley, but just as members of this country, it's important for you to share stories with the delegation if you have them, because they are paying attention.
Especially student stories.
Yeah.
They want first-hand stories, like something you're witnessing happening. And they're fighting really hard, our delegation in D.C. They really, we even witnessed Representative Sandberry speak, oh my gosh, very passionately,
Yeah, and I think, so Melanie Stansbury doesn't represent our area, but represents a large area in New Mexico, was working with a representative from Minnesota, and I forget the third state, to introduce the Taxpayer Protection Act. So this whole idea of protecting our data, so that when DOJ is going into these different agencies, they're not able to get our personal data. And then we were able to meet with her after that. So we skipped our meeting with her staffers to see her on the floor, and then we went back to her office, and she was grateful to see us and glad that we were there, and we clapped at the risk of being thrown out.
Yeah.
So anyway, we were just. It was a good trip overall. I think it was a very interesting time to be in DC, as you can imagine. But there was a lot of good work. There were over 1,400 community college trustees from across the nation who were there, meeting with their delegates as well. And I would say that it wasn't, as far as our group was concerned, like there were not partisan politics. We were all there for the community colleges, and even our so Democratic and Republican colleagues felt very similarly about the legislation that we were hoping to see or not see. So, anyhow, anything you all would like to add about that experience?
No, I mean, that was, you covered it. It was just
I think
chaotic time there.
Very important to recognize that community college support and especially workforce training seems to be a very bipartisan issue, and that I'm guessing most of the trustees were Republicans, but we were all really on the same page.
Okay. The other, do we have any, I'm going to move on if there is no other business. We're okay. Are there public comments, Audrey? No public comments? Okay. The next...
We had a guest come in. Did you intend to speak publicly today or no? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Marcy's from the League of Women Voters.
Okay. All right.
Welcome, Marcy. Okay, so governing board in March. So spring break falls on... during the week that or our board meeting falls during the week of spring break. And so I am going to propose to the group that we cancel our March 12th work session, and similar to this month, we have one meeting, which would be March 19th, if folks are okay with that. So it would be a longer meeting like today, instead of two different meetings.
Okay. Will that be an issue since it's probably the beginning of the budget discussions?
This is our old format, so I think if we need to call a special session for budget, I think we're going to have to do that instead, if everyone thinks that's okay. And I'm gonna look at Nick. Is that okay? And Becky, if in the event that we need a special session, we could call one. Okay. All right. Well, without further adu,
well, I mean, if we're gonna have another 4-hour session, or I'd prefer it be later in the day, but we can discuss it.
We can discuss.
I will still be in session at the Roundhouse.
Yeah. All right. We can definitely discuss timing. Okay. Can I get a motion to adjourn? Everybody.
I move.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay.
Present.
We are adjourned. Yay. I've always wanted to do that.